Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Had a Gaming System. If you guys enjoy this what if, then comment down below and let me. The let go of the video is 100 likes, so like this video, let me that you're interested in the series and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave, also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So let's go. Ninja Academy, true to its name, was a training ground for the next generation of shinobi. It taught the arts of ninjutsu, including the transformation, substitution, and clone jutsu, taijutsu, focusing on the academy's own style, and genjutsu, covering the basics of detecting and releasing illusions. Beyond the ninja disciplines, the academy also followed an academic curriculum set to the standard of the Fire Nation, ensuring that students received a well-rounded education. The academic week at the academy was structured into 4 school days, 1 free day at school, and 2 days off. During the regular school days, students attended classes that covered both the ninja skills and more traditional subjects, then returned home. The free day at school offered a unique opportunity. On this day, students were encouraged to join various clubs that aligned with their interests and potential career paths in the shinobi world. These clubs ranged from those specializing in creating poisons or kenjutsu to others focused on skills like seduction. Each club was designed to engage students in practical applications of their skills, with guidance from their teachers. The Club of Seduction, intriguingly, was the most popular among the female students at the academy. Its popularity did not stem from a collective desire to become seductresses in the traditional sense. Rather, the club offered a curriculum that extended far beyond mere allure or the art of acting like a femme fatale from a novel. It delved into the seduction of the mind, equipping the students with skills that enhanced their overall appeal through confidence, intelligence, and nurturing, traits that, when cultivated, made someone inherently compelling and persuasive. The club's activities were both diverse and enriching, designed to refine the students' understanding of interpersonal dynamics. They engaged in analysis of verbal and non-verbal cues, learning to read body language meticulously. Acting sessions were conducted to help them adopt various personas. Students learned traditional skills like kimono dressing, flower arranging, and tea ceremonies. These were taught not only for potential high society missions but also because many students simply enjoyed these ceremonial arts. Club of Seduction. Ino Yamanaka strode purposefully through the club, a plan forming in her mind. She approached her rival, Sakura, and slammed her hand down in front of her, catching her off guard. "What do you want, Ino pig?" Sakura glared back, bristling at the interruption. "Nothing, forehead," Ino replied with a smirk. "Just wanted to make a bet." "What is it?" Sakura asked, curiosity piqued despite her annoyance. "Simple," Ino said, her smirk widening. "Today is the flower pressing competition," she explained, watching as Sakura nodded. "So my bet is simple, whoever loses this competition asks Naruto out." "What?" Sakura screamed, her voice rising high enough to catch everyone's attention in the room. "Come on, Sakura. Naruto-kun even went as far as fighting Sasuke for your attention. Can't you throw him a bone?" Ino taunted mockingly. Sakura's expression darkened. "Sasuke-kun held back against that loser." "Oh, then are you afraid that you'll lose, forehead?" Ino teased, sensing Sakura's growing irritation. Sakura stood up abruptly, fire in her eyes. "You're on training grounds. Yata!" shouted Naruto, jumping and pumping a fist into the air. "Finally, I've made you my bitch now, you stupid targets. Quest name: my personal best. Achieve 90% accuracy or better. Completion status: successfully achieved. Next step: claim your rewards. Closing square bracket. Completion rewards. Experience points express 100. Item acquired. Book, Academy Intermediate Taijutsu. Naruto's eyes widened as his quest completion notification popped up, showing his hard-earned rewards, including the Academy Intermediate Taijutsu book. He couldn't contain his excitement. "Yes, finally, I did it. Took forever, but it was worth it. Now, just the advanced book remains." Hinata watched as Naruto leapt around in happiness, which wasn't surprising considering he had been vigorously attacking the training targets for hours. Neither of them belonged to any particular club, so they often trained together instead. In just a few minutes, Hinata knew Naruto would tire out, and then it would be her turn to train. However, her routine expectation was interrupted when Naruto suddenly froze, his expression shifting to one of shock. Is something wrong? Hinata thought anxiously. Meanwhile Naruto stared into the air, his face etched with complete disbelief as he gazed upon the system. Hybrid Quest Alert. Quest Name: Love of a Flower. Description: Ino Yamanaka has lost a bet to Sakura Haruno in a flower pressing competition. As a consequence, she now has to go on a date with the player, Naruto Uzumaki. This scenario is forked, meaning the course of the quest can significantly alter based on Naruto's actions. The outcome of this quest could lead to notable changes in the world dynamics and character relationships. Closing square bracket. Rewards. The rewards for this quest will vary based on Naruto Uzumaki's actions and decisions throughout the date. Closing square bracket. Failure condition. A poorly managed date resulting in an unfavorable outcome with Ino. Closing square bracket. Gah, I can't believe I lost to Forehead. Now I have to do this. Three friends lay on the grass, buffeted by a cool evening breeze. Choji sat, his fingers idly ruminating through a bag of potato chips, before mechanically moving towards his mouth in a movement that had been so honed it was practically instinct. Shikamaru, laid on his back, his eyes opened just enough to gaze into the clouds, but not enough for his pupils to be visibly seen. Ino paced around, her hair swinging in the wind, her footsteps trampling the grasses beneath her, and her gait one of inner turmoil. Come on, don't just lay there, give me some ideas. I can't do this without your help. Shikamaru closed his eyes even further, preventing his pupils from gathering any more light, as his breathing slowed on principle. He was kicked in the ribs for his effort. Don't pretend to fall asleep. Shikamaru's eyes opened, his speech coming out a slow, an enthusiastic drawl, like that of a donkey who had carried two obese men across the Suna Desert. Troublesome, you were the one who made the bet in the first place. Ino paused in her gait, one finger raised in indignation. That's because I thought I'd win. Forehead cheated. She got me with an uppercut that came out of nowhere. How was that cheating? Shikamaru asked. Meanwhile Choji wondered why there was a fight in a flower pressing competition, as he didn't know it, but Ino did a double or nothing with the condition that Sakura could add a condition to the bet. Well, I don't know. All I know is, there's no way she could have beaten me in a fair fight. Choji rubbed his cheek with his finger, his momentary reprieve from his favorite snack. Was provided with the need to be in the loop, he played the mediator amongst the trio, neither too hot-headed to listen to reason, nor too relaxed to abstain from taking actions. What was the bet about? Ino seemed to turn green at the memory. Her face soured as though she'd taken a bite out of an unripe lemon, her fists clenched, balled and released and her body swayed in place, as though besieged by seasickness. The loser has asked out, Naruto. Choji had his eyes widen, and Shikamaru merely muttered a simple word under his breath. Troublesome. I know. Just think. Asking out that loudmouthed, hyperactive, idiot in that horrible orange tracksuit. Ino shuddered in place. I can't be seen doing that. Ino plopped onto the grass, causing the Shikamaru to stare, curiously, as his friend had not bothered about the grass stains, nor had she complained about ruining her dress nor whined about the possibilities of biting insects moving through the hardy green flora. Don't do it, Ino. Shikamaru said, what do you stand to lose? It's either that or give up on Sasuke-kun, and leave him to Forehead. Shikamaru said nothing, letting the atmosphere be filled with the comfortable sound of crackling potato chips. It echoed in the background constantly, like a symphony that could not be changed, and like an accompanying orchestra that reminded the boy of the companionship to which he was privileged. I know. Ino sprung to her feet, slamming her fist into her palm. I'll confess all sorts of feelings for Naruto, that way, he'll be the one to ask me out. Choji occupying himself with his chips spoke up. I don't think that's such a good idea, Ino. What do you mean, Choji? It's flawless. I don't think Shikamaru here could come up with a better plan. I mean, I still have to make him believe I like him. My question is, why Naruto? Choji interrupted while eating chips. Ino sighed and mumbled. Naruto's fight with Sasuke is still fresh in everyone's mind. I might have planned to have Sakura be embarrassed by the fact that she asked Naruto out. And it backfired, Shikamaru added as Ino glared at him. Okay, so new plan. Don't lie to him, Shikamaru felt the need to say, he's changed. Ino felt her nose rumple in disbelief. I don't think Sasuke holding back in a fight constitutes change. Ino frowned, wondering if the Nara was joking. Okay then, Pineapple Head, when did Naruto change? I don't know. Ino huffed, putting her hand on her waist. I'll be the judge of that. The pineapple-haired boy let out a single, slow nod. Don't say I didn't warn you. Finding Naruto was the hardest part. It was especially harder to track him down to a recluse location, one in which she knew Billboard Brow and a group of other girls would be watching from the bushes, probably ready to watch her make a fool of herself. She had hoped she'd be the one watching the pink-haired bimbo ask Naruto out. It would have been the most hilarious thing to watch, as the blonde would have been so ecstatic, ignorant of the girl's own dismay. Naruto-kun. Huh, Ino. The blonde stared at her, looking both left and right as though uncertain. You talkin' to me? Ino felt her anger bubble up, but let it slide low. I don't think there's any other person named Naruto in Konoha, is there? The boy put his hands behind his head and let out an awkward laugh that almost made Ino cringe. Yeah, I'm the one and only Naruto Uzumaki Datbeo. Ino desperately wished the Shinigami would take her there and then. So, Naruto-kun, there's something I wanted to tell you. Huh, really? You see, Naruto-kun, I've been watching you for a while now, and I didn't want to tell you this, but I. The words formed in her mouth, as she stared. At the inquisitive blue eyes of the shorter blonde, she found herself wondering why they would not come forth. Maybe it was something odd about how his eyes seemed to examine her, or how they lit up with an emotion she could not quite recognize, or perhaps, it was the giggling of the girls she could hear that made her uncertain of how to proceed. She didn't quite understand it herself. This was Naruto of all people. He bounced back from anything, so what if she was going to get his hopes up and lie to his face? She shouldn't care, it shouldn't matter to her. It's not like she was going to break his heart or anything, so why was she unable to find the right words to say? Hey Ino. The sudden exclamation threw her off guard, and she found him staring at her with a concentrated gaze she did not know he had possessed. Why yes. Go out on a date with me. To Ichiraku Ramen. The girl could not have been any more floored if the Hokage himself had pranced by on a unicycle. What? I know it's kinda sudden, but you're a really cool person, ya know. I mean, we've both got awesome blonde hair, though mine is way cooler, and I think you're pretty. She idly wondered if one of her clan members had taken over Naruto's body with the clan jutsu and made him say those words, but instead, she shook it off as the universe being in her favor on this odd particular occasion. Naruto had asked her out on a date, hence, she couldn't ask him out anymore. The bet was null and void. She was free. Ino regained a bit of her confidence, placing her hand on her hips. No way. Why in the world would I want to go out with you? I mean, wanting to date someone just because you think they're good looking. That's really shallow of you, Naruto. But, he paused. Isn't that the same reason why you like Sasuke-tem? What? No way. I like Sasuke-kun because he's strong and he's cool and he's. Words, fickle as they were, failed her. She had an extensive vocabulary of terms that focused on the mind, on plants, on animals, and yet, despite her collective accumulation of adjectives used to describe things which were beautiful, she remained speechless. Fine then, Naruto said, crossing his arms and turning around. Good luck with the tem, you two deserve each other. It was strange, as to how those words seemed to sting much more than she thought possible. Hidden behind the trees, Hinata felt her nails digging into the bark as she witnessed the confession and rejection unfold. Using her Byakugan, she noticed Sakura and the others also hiding, watching the scene. Anger flared within her. Naruto-kun's feelings aren't your amusement, she thought bitterly, tempted to confront Sakura, Ino, and the rest. However, her anger quickly subsided, replaced by a pang of jealousy towards Ino for her boldness. Naruto had been kind enough to help Ino even though she was scheming. Leaning back against the cold bark, Hinata sighed and sat down. Naruto-kun, if I could confess. Hinata blushed, unable to even say the word. She clasped her cheeks, feeling a warm flush spread across her face at the mere thought of going on a date with Naruto. What a loser. Sakura's mocking laughter came from the bushes, drawing a sharp frown from Hinata. Bitch, Hinata thought bitterly. She remembered the stink bomb Naruto had given her as a gift. With a flick of her wrist, she threw it toward the bushes. No. Sakura's scream pierced the quiet as the bomb did its work. Hinata's heart pounded furiously, a mix of thrill and guilt washing over her as she fled from the scene. I can't believe I just did that. It felt good. As Naruto walked away from Ino, he found a bench and sat down. Naruto watched as the system flickered, seemingly uncertain about the outcome of this unusual quest. Weird quest, he mused to himself. The idea of a date was initially exciting, but reading the full details soured his mood. He pondered various strategies but ultimately decided to let Ino off the hook. The thought of forcing a date or playing games didn't sit right with him. As Naruto walked away, he was deep in thought. Am I a hypocrite for calling Ino shallow when I like Sakura mainly for her looks? Do I even really like Sakura? He questioned himself. Then, another thought struck him. Why did I have a crush on her? Just because she's pretty? No, that can't be it. Hinata is prettier. He paused, surprised by his own thoughts. Wait, where did that come from? Quest name: Love of a Flower. Completion status: Successful. Next step: Claim your reward. Closing square bracket. Completion rewards. Unique item acquired: Skill Rune Stone. Naruto clicked on a tab. Item: Skill Rune Stone. Material: Enchanted Stone. Closing square bracket. Effect level: Variable. Closing square bracket. Requirement: None. Closing square bracket. Effect: Unlocks a random skill. Closing square bracket. Use limit: Single use. Closing square bracket. Description: This stone holds mysterious powers capable of unlocking a random skill for the user. The nature of the skill unlocked is influenced by the user's luck, making each activation unique. Ideal for shinobi seeking to expand their abilities in unforeseen ways. The rune's enchantment is expended upon use, granting a potentially game-changing skill based on the wielder's fortune. Closing square bracket. It was not every day Yumino Iruka chose to treat Naruto out to dinner, and it was even rarer for him to offer to pay up the boy's backed-up debts, but, as he had found out from the resident gossip amongst the students, Naruto had asked out the young Yamanaka heiress and he had been brutally turned down. Though not exactly possessing sagely wisdom in the art of romance, the Chunin teacher felt that the young boy needed some company, or at the very least, needed some ramen to make him bounce back to his usual self. But Naruto was actually wrestling with a different problem: should I use the skill rune or not? He was deep in thought, weighing his options, completely unaware of Iruka's worried look. The steam from their ramen bowls filled the air, and the quiet ticking of the clock seemed to press on Naruto. He knew he had to make a decision soon about the skill rune, but it was a tough choice. Item: Skill Rune Stone. Status: Used. Acquired skill: Spirit Possession. Skill: Spirit Possession. Class: Spirit Warden. Effect: Enables semi-partial possession by a spirit, allowing the player to access the spirit's abilities. Closing square bracket. Slot status: Empty. Activation: Open the slot to generate a random spirit for possession. Closing square bracket. Caution: The chosen spirit will become the default spirit for summoning. Closing square bracket. Action required: Acceptance or declination of skill use. Surrounded by the comforting steam of their ramen, Naruto finally shrugged and decided, why not? He accepted the use of the skill rune. Suddenly, a card materialized on the system screen. It depicted a figure from the late 19th century, renowned for his sharp deductive skills. The man was dressed in a classic deerstalker hat and an elegant Victorian-era coat, clutching a magnifying glass. His piercing eyes and thoughtful expression suggested deep intelligence and remarkable powers of observation. Skill: Spirit Possession. Description: Allows partial possession by a spirit of Sherlock Holmes. Closing square bracket. Stat enhancements: Intelligence int +20. Wisdom wis +20. Special status: Eyes of the Detective. Effect: Grants the ability to observe the environment and utilize pre-existing knowledge to deduce minute details, enhancing investigative and problem solving. Skills: Closing square bracket. Naruto observed the skill update closely. He realized that the spirit possession skill didn't require leveling up. The stat boosts to intelligence and wisdom were significant on their own. Plus, there was no cost in chakra points, CP, or durability issues to worry about. It seemed like a class feature of the Spirit Warden class, something he could use repeatedly whenever he needed. This is more than enough, Naruto thought, satisfied with his new ability. He decided to activate the skill. As he did, his perception of the world around him changed dramatically. Everything appeared as though viewed through a sepia filter, details and nuances sharply defined and vividly enhanced. This strange, exhilarating perspective made the world seem both old and new. Oi, Chuki Gigi, you out of toppings. My ramen's looking a little thin. Iruka bopped him over the head. Baka, don't be so ungrateful. To think I actually offered to treat you to ramen after the pranks you pulled in class last week. Naruto's lips turned into a semi-indignant pout. But the broth is like 10% smaller than it was yesterday. And the toppings and portions are smaller as well. Iruka's eyes twitched. I think it's just your appetite that's grown bigger. Haha, Naruto-kun is kind of right. Iruka's eyebrow rose. He is. I am. Chuki nodded, slowly. Our usual delivery boy is a little late with the order, so I had to cut corners for the ramen. I'm sorry about that. Iruka waved him off. It's nothing. I barely noticed the difference, only a ramen-holic like Naruto would realize it. Ramen is the food of the gods and everything about it is divine datbayo. Naruto said, grinning, I know everything there is to know about Ichiraku ramen. Iruka snorted. Sure, and I'm certain you can tell how many toppings are in my 14. Iruka blinked. He stared down at his bowl, and counted, and found himself baffled at the blonde getting the accurate number. Lucky guess. Naruto shook his head as he scarfed down more ramen. Not luck. Oh really? Then how many strands of noodles are left in my 38? Iruka stared into his bowl, slowly counting with his chopsticks, one by one, until he reached the exact number Naruto mentioned. How did you know that? Chuki Gigi usually has a fixed number of strands per bowl. It's enough to leave you satisfied, but not too much that it'll make you leave it unfinished. He said between slurps, and, you eat really slow Iruka-sensei. It was ridiculous, to know the exact number of noodles in a bowl, and the speed required to actually consume said noodles, so Iruka found himself staring at Naruto, his mind trying to comprehend what he had just witnessed. Naruto, how many people have visited Ichiraku ramen today alone? Naruto took a huge slurp out of his bowl, 50 or so. Why? Iruka glanced to Chuki and Ayame, and their widened eyes spoke more loudly than any verbal confirmation they could have possibly uttered. How did you know that? Ayame-ne's sleeves are folded up. What does that have to do with anything? Everything. Chuki Gigi's sink is kind of deep. Ayame-ne doesn't really need to fold her sleeves all the way up to her elbow in order to wash the dishes. The only time she'd need to do that is when there are tons of dishes available and she's put them all in. She folds her sleeves so they don't fall into the filled sink and get wet, and also to make it easier for her to wash. Iruka's mouth felt dry. But, that just tells you that they've been a lot of customers. How did you guess 50? Because Ayame-ne has also been cooking, Naruto said. Chuki Gigi only ever lets Ayame-ne join him to prepare ramen when there are more customers than he can handle. And he's no slouch. He can take on 6 at a time, but if it gets too much, Ayame-ne helps him out. Naruto paused, placing a hand on his chin. Also, today's Monday, so there are usually about 8 or 11 customers in the morning, and around lunchtime, this place is filled really fast, that adds around 20 to 30 customers coming and going. Then after classes are over and in the evenings, there are fewer customers, but still enough to guess around 60. The sound of the kettle blowing was the only noise in the restaurant. How did you know Ayame-san had been cooking? What do you mean? She's got her apron on and everything, and look, those are miso soup stains on them. Iruka found himself feeling lightheaded and slightly dazed, more so when he realized that Naruto of all people and of all his students, was subconsciously using inductive and deductive techniques to glimmer information about things around him, and he didn't even realize it. He took in several deep breaths, before he decided to calm himself. Naruto, how many major hidden villages do we have? The blonde boy looked sheepish as he scratched his head, too. How is it that? Iruka had to calm himself and lower his voice. How is it that you can accurately guess how many customers have visited Ichiraku ramen, and how many strands of noodles are in my bowl, but you don't know how many major hidden villages we have in the elemental nations? Because I don't care about that stuff. Who cares how many there are? Konoha is the greatest datbayo. Ruruka sighed, shaking his head. Maybe he was just reading too much into things. Naruto spent most of his hours at Ichiraku Ramen, and had more hours at the establishment than he probably did at his own home. With so much time spent there, it would explain his ability to pick out all the littlest details and things that happened around there with alarming detail and frightening efficiency. It wasn't like Naruto was some sort of hidden genius or anything. No, the very notion sounded utterly preposterous. A thought did however stumble onto the Chunin's mind, and for a few seconds, he contemplated it. Hey Naruto, tell me about how you do your pranking. Naruto stopped, staring at him suspiciously for several seconds. If this is a trick to find out where I keep my gear, Uruka-sensei. Uruka put his hands up in a gesture of surrender. No tricks. I'm genuinely curious. Some of your pranks must take careful planning and deliberation. I wonder how you got into it. Well, 2 hours later, Uruka was regretting his decision to ask. While he had been hoping to gain some more insight into Naruto's apparent analytical and deductive abilities, it seemed that those abilities only registered or came up when it came to Ichiraku Ramen, or anything ramen related. Instead of finding out more about his student's mind, he was treated to a lecture on the different types of itching powder, the best paints to use for brighter colors, how to carefully set up feather traps, and all sorts of other information that the Chunin truly was not interested in. And then, you have to make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly or the itching powder might still be on you. That's great Naruto, wow, look at the time. I've got some scripts to mark and you've got to get ready for school tomorrow. But I haven't told how to use the rubber chicken yet. Uruka nodded, slowly. No need, you seem to have a mastery of pranking that I don't think I can achieve anytime soon. Naruto blushed before rubbing the back of his head with his arm, really? Of course. And if you applied those pranking skills of yours to your shinobi knowledge, you might even make a brilliant strategist or trap master someday. Naruto's face furrowed up in confusion. What does pranking have to do with being a shinobi? Well, information gathering, reconnaissance, stealth, and the likes. Instead of, say, planting a stink bomb in someone's house, imagine instead planting an actual bomb, or some knockout gas instead. Uruka watched as the gears began slowly turning in Naruto's head. So I can prank people, just using deadlier and cooler stuff, and I could become a great shinobi for doing it. Sure, I don't see why not. Uruka placed his hand on the boy's head and tousled his hair. Don't get ahead of yourself, Naruto. You'll need to make sure you don't fail the academy this time around, and actually learn things. We can't have a Hokage who doesn't know how many hidden villages exist, now can we? You have slept in your bed. HP and CP are fully stored. Friday morning arrived, and Naruto was brimming with excitement. He quickly munched on his breakfast, eagerly checking his skill screen. Let's see what we've got here, Naruto muttered to himself, scrolling through his skills. Skill: Intermediate Academy Taijutsu. Description: Intermediate hand-to-hand combat training, enhancing techniques in stances, strikes, kicks, and blocks. More complex maneuvers are introduced at this level. Closing square bracket. Active enhancements. Strength (STR) modifier, +3 for 45 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Vitality (VIT) modifier, +3 for 45 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Dexterity (Dex) modifier, +3 for 45 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Skill: Intermediate Academy Tactics. Description: Deepens understanding of advanced team strategies, complex ambush setups, and sophisticated counter-ambush techniques. Closing square bracket. Active enhancements. Intelligence (INT) modifier, +4 for 45 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Wisdom (WIS) modifier, +4 for 45 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Intermediate Academy Taijutsu and Tactics. Nice stat boosts for a short time. But wait. He paused, his face dropping. Ah, man, the intermediate skills replaced the beginner ones. There goes my master plan of stacking low-grade skills for ultimate power. He dramatically wiped away a fake tear, playing up his disappointment. Guess I can't cheat my way to the top with low-level loopholes, Naruto sighed theatrically, leaving for the academy with a mock-sad stride. I guess the Intermediate Academy Taijutsu had a synergistic effect on my other skills, causing them to level up. Hey, I am not complaining. Skill. Uzumaki Clan Taijutsu, Swirling Kata. Level 4. Description. A defensive, agility-based combat style from the Uzumaki clan, focused on long-range attacks utilizing scroll arts. Enhanced for supreme combat efficiency and devastating power. Closing square bracket. Passive enhancements. Scroll synchronization. Increases efficiency and speed of scroll arts integration in combat by 30%. Closing square bracket. Enhanced agility. Improves dodging capabilities and reflexes by 40%. Closing square bracket. Advanced seal knowledge. Enables quicker and more complex seal formations, reducing setup time for scroll arts by 20%. Closing square bracket. Chakra flow mastery. Enhances chakra control, increasing the effectiveness of chakra-infused scroll attacks by 25%. Closing square bracket. Active boost. Swirling assault. Temporarily enhances attack range and speed by 50% for 60 seconds upon activation. Closing square bracket. Chakra infusion. Increases the power of scroll-based attacks by 40% during the active phase. Closing square bracket. Seal burst. Activates a powerful area of effect attack from scrolls, dealing significant damage to multiple targets within range. Closing square bracket. Class feature. Scroll arts. Level 4. Description. A technique in the art of utilizing jutsu scrolls, the hallmark combat style of the Uzumaki clan, now refined for strategic versatility and enhanced efficacy. Closing square bracket. Passive enhancements. Scroll mastery. Reduces chakra consumption for scroll activations by 20%. Closing square bracket. Rapid deployment. Increases speed of scroll deployment by 30%, allowing for quicker jutsu execution. Closing square bracket. Scroll capacity expansion. Can now carry and effectively use twice the number of scrolls previously capable. Closing square bracket. Precision casting. Reduces the margin of error in scroll jutsu execution by 25%, ensuring higher accuracy. Closing square bracket. Active boosts. Multi-scroll synthesis. Ability to combine effects of multiple scrolls simultaneously, increasing the complexity and power of the resulting jutsu. Closing square bracket. Scroll conservation. Each successful jutsu execution has a 10% chance to not consume a scroll. Closing square bracket. Silent casting. Allows for the silent activation of scrolls, reducing detection by enemies by 20%. Closing square bracket. Naruto settled into his usual seat in class, not noticing the girl beside him until she caught his eye. "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. This is usually where my friend and I sit," he said casually, scanning the room for Hinata. Naruto-kun," came a timid voice. Naruto turned and his eyes widened in shock. "Hinata," he exclaimed, hardly recognizing her. Hinata looked completely different. Her hair was styled differently, parted to show off her features, and she wore visible makeup and tighter clothes. It was as if she was trying to mimic Sakura and Ino. Naruto felt incredibly uncomfortable. He liked Hinata as a friend, but this dramatic change was a bit too much for him. Despite his discomfort, he knew he needed to be supportive. Path Quest Alert. Quest. Hinata's confidence. Description. Hinata has transformed herself to become more confident and noticeable to the man she admires. Closing square bracket. Objective. Talk to Hinata. Closing square bracket. Reward. Varies based on players' words and actions. Closing square bracket. Failure. Consequences depend on players' words and actions. Closing square bracket. Action required. Confirm acceptance or declination of quest. Closing square bracket. This is bullshit, Naruto blurted out, staring at the system intently, causing Hinata to startle and whip her head back. What? She stammered, confused by his sudden outburst. Naruto fixed his gaze directly into Hinata's eyes. "Hinata, did you change for someone else?" he asked earnestly. Hinata was taken aback by how quickly Naruto seemed to see through her, but then she faltered, wondering if he realized she had changed for him. "Hinata," Naruto said softly, reaching out to gently touch her hair, trying to coax it back to its usual style. "Look, I don't know who this guy you admire is," he continued, his voice filled with genuine concern. Hinata's heart sank. She longed to tell him that it was him, but the words died in her throat as he went on. "But don't change for anyone else's attention," he advised, his voice earnest. Naruto paused, his thoughts flashing back to his own struggles, the pranks, the yelling from adults, the disdainful glares, and how the system had revealed his hated reputation. "It's going to be hell for you if you try to change for them," he added, his voice heavy with empathy. He remembered how, in his early days at the academy, he had tried so hard to conform, to be what they wanted, only to find that it never brought the recognition or acceptance he craved. "Change is good, but change for yourself, never for someone else," Naruto continued, his voice deepening with emotion. "Take my word for it, you'll just end up chasing their approval, and they still might not accept you. Accept yourself, make yourself better, change not for them but for yourself." Naruto finished, unsure if his words were more for Hinata or for himself, maybe both. Hinata looked down, absorbing his words, feeling the weight of their truth. "Yeah, you're right," she whispered. Quest. Hinata's confidence. Status. Successfully completed. Reward granted. Naruto's revered status has been changed to Damocles' sword. Closing square bracket. Damocles' sword. Description. A special status given to non-players whom the player's reputation exceeds 1000. Closing square bracket. Effect. Players' actions and words to the non-player are exceedingly influential, carrying significant weight. Closing square bracket. Warning. Hinata's confidence now hinges on player Naruto's actions and words. Each interaction can significantly impact her state. Proceed with care. Closing square bracket. Note. Good luck. Closing square bracket. Naruto didn't feel good about this reward, it felt off, like it was nice to know that his words and actions meant a lot to Hinata, but for some reason that note, good luck, felt very ominous. Naruto shrugged off this ominous feeling. "I am thinking way too into it, right? Today was the monthly general spar, an event where using jutsu was permitted, meaning the majority of the winners were usually from the clan families." Naruto was buzzing with excitement, eager to test how spirit possession would fare in battle. To his surprise, his opponent was Shino. "Hey," Naruto called out, waving his hand nervously. Shino responded with a silent nod, his demeanor as unreadable as ever. "Hajime," Mizuki announced, signaling the start of the match. Immediately, Naruto activated spirit possession. Shino paused, locking eyes with Naruto. In that moment, something about Naruto's gaze unnerved him. It was as if Naruto had read every move he might make, every strategy he could deploy. Shino felt a chill run down his spine as he confronted those piercing eyes. For a tense minute, Shino and Naruto stared each other down, each embodying the epitome of calm. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the silence between them charged like the air before a storm. It was as if they were two combatants measuring each other, their intense focus and steady, controlled breathing adding to the weight of the moment. The standoff broke suddenly as Naruto's hand flicked forward. All eyes followed the kunai that thudded into the ground, but it wasn't the kunai that sent a wave of raw fear through Shino, it was the explosive seal attached to it. Shino instinctively leapt back to safety, but mid-air, he caught sight of Naruto aiming a shuriken at his neck. Before Shino could even form the hand signs for a substitution jutsu, the shuriken was alarmingly close to his throat. With no time to fully react, Shino executed a quick backflip, narrowly dodging the projectile as it whizzed past while Shino was bending his body into the backflip mid-air. In the next moment, he noticed a metallic shimmer, the ninja wire attached to the shuriken became visible. Naruto yanked on the wire, redirecting the shuriken downward toward Shino's right hand. Reacting on instinct, Shino raised his hand to save it, which inadvertently caused him to land hard on his back with a thud. Dust billowed around him as he felt a leg press firmly against his chest. Looking up, he saw Naruto standing over him, an expression of calculated calm on his face as if every move had been meticulously planned. Naruto then flashed the kunai close to Shino's neck, signaling a definitive end to the match. "Impressive win, Uzumaki-san," Shino conceded, acknowledging his defeat. "But I think it was a little excessive to use an explosive seal." "It's fake," Naruto lied with dead calm as he picked up the kunai from the ground. The explosive seal on the tag wasn't fake, rather, it was incomplete. Shino watched Naruto's retreating back, his thoughts running deep. Weaponizing fear, anticipating my reactions, and playing 10 steps ahead. Looks like there is more to you than meets the eye, Uzumaki-san. He thought silently. Naruto felt the spirit possession turn off as the cool and calm washed away. No, more like popped like a balloon. Naruto quickly ran away from the grounds. The sepia filter, the dead calmness, the hundreds of plans, holy shit, that was so jarring compared to his current mindset. This skill is amazing, Naruto thought as he went to splash some water on his face to calm himself down. Let's not try to use that skill all the time, it was intense. But hey, I guess now I know how smart people fight, Naruto chuckled as he felt a throbbing in his head. Quest. No hold spar. Status. Successfully completed. Reward. Plus 100 reputation with Shino Aburame, plus 100 express. After school was over, Naruto and Hinata headed to Higarashi's weapons. Naruto burst into the shop with his usual enthusiasm. Yo, Higurashi-san, I'm here as promised. Yeah, just a minute. I'll go get Tenten, said Hidden, waving Naruto off. What's that about? Asked Hinata. Apparently his daughter has a copy of Academy Advanced Taijutsu. I'm going to see if I can buy it off of her, explained Naruto. Oh, I see, Hinata murmured, pondering if Naruto would accept her own advanced taijutsu book. Anyway, look around, they've got some great stuff here. Naruto said. Thanks, I like our stuff too, said a new voice. Walking out from behind the counter was a kunoichi, maybe a year older than them. She wore a flowery pink sleeveless shirt, red pants and her hair was held up in two round buns. So, which one of you wants to buy my book? That would be me, said Naruto, stepping up to meet her. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. Higurashi Tenten, back at ya. So, about that book. Yeah, I could sell it to you but you got to do something for me first. I want to fight you. Just a spar, but I have to know if you're worthy of it. Alert. World Quest. Quest name. Fight me, survive a spar with Tenten. Objective. Survive for 2 minutes in a sparring session with Tenten without being killed or knocked out. Closing square bracket. Rewards for completion. Experience points express 200. Skill book. Advanced Academy Taijutsu. Special offer. 70% off coupon for any one item at Higurashi Weapons. Reputation increase. Positive impact on your standing with Higurashi Tenten. Penalty for failure. Experience points express 20. Reputation impact. Decrease in standing with Higurashi Tenten. Action required. Confirm acceptance or declination of quest. Closing square bracket. Naruto tapped the acceptance. Sure, happy to, said Naruto. And he was happy too. Any chance for more experience was a big win in his book. So where do we do this? Meet me tomorrow morning at Training Field 4, my sensei will referee the match. And your friends can come watch too. I promise I won't beat you too badly. I'll be there, said Naruto excitedly. This was going to be epic. Higurashi Tenten LV9. Assuming he survived. They say love is blind, and if you're in love, you might ignore their craziness. Hinata wasn't sure if this applied to her, but today, Saturday, seemed a perfect test. Her plan was simple. Wake up, train for a few hours, then meet Naruto at Training Ground 2 to help him with whatever he needed. However, when she arrived, she found Naruto laughing like a madman, and the reason was bizarre, to say the least. Naruto's jacket, the one he'd previously ruined with chakra dye, now sported square holes all over, with hammers attached to each hole using duct tape, positioned so that the hammers touched the skin. It was an odd sight that made Hinata pause in confusion. Naruto-kun, what is that? Hinata asked, pointing at the jacket, still puzzled over why Naruto would further ruin a perfectly good jacket, ugly color. Aside, it had been functional. My ticket to beating Tenten, Naruto declared with a confident grin, stripping off his current jacket to don the modified one. Hinata's cheeks flushed with a blush, watching him change, but her embarrassment quickly shifted to amusement as she struggled to hold back laughter at the sight of Naruto proudly wearing his ridiculous creation. Equipment. Items your character carries for use in various situations. Closing square bracket. Slot. A designated position within a character's profile designed to hold specific types of equipment. Each slot can accommodate one type of item for optimal performance, although players may place any item in any slot. Closing square bracket. Number 4. Weapons. Armor. Gear. Magic items. Since I can't use my equipment until I am level 5, I just have to make do with these. Item. diluted orange Academy issue pants. Material, thin, lightweight, reinforced with light leather armor. Closing square bracket. Stat modifiers. Dex +2, AC +3, HP +15. Status effects, +5% stealth efficiency. Closing square bracket. Durability, 600/600. Closing square bracket. Item, modified Academy issue jacket. Material, thin, lightweight, reinforced with light leather armor. Closing square bracket. Protection level, none. Closing square bracket. Stat modifiers, STR +8, AC +4, HP +12. Closing square bracket. Durability, 6/60. Closing square bracket. Description. A modified jacket filled with 8 holes and 8 taped hammers that offer a synergistic effect of strength to the user. This jacket will be unusable after a single use. Closing square bracket. Name, Uzumaki Naruto. Status, chakra imbalance, difficulty in controlling chakra, -100% performance in executing simple jutsus. Title, Academy student. Level, 3. Class, Shinobi of the Uzumaki clan. Race, human. HP, 352/350 seconds. AC, 22. CP, 10k. Racial traits. Chakra chains, locked. Mind's eye. Healer's body, locked. Class features. Scrolls arts. Fuinjutsu. Feats. Observer. Stats. STR, 21. Dex, 19. Con, 12. Int, 13. Wiz, 12. Cha, 9. VIT, 14. Luck. Closing square bracket. Stat points remaining, 2. Allies. Equipment. Weapons. Modified Academy issue jacket. Armor. Diluted orange Academy issue pants. Gear. Black fingerless gloves with metal backplate. Magic items. Dark blue gambeson. Express. 950. Description. Uzumaki Naruto is the dead last of the Konoha Academy, having failed the graduation twice before and clearly not prepared to graduate. While most of his past is a mystery, Uzumaki Naruto has found his clan. Closing square bracket. Higurashi shop. The shop door swung open and in came Naruto, draped in an enormous blanket, causing Mr. Higurashi to raise an eyebrow in confusion. Is it ready? Naruto asked, his voice muffled by the blanket. Mr. Higurashi nodded and pulled a box from under the counter. He glanced out the window and noticed Hinata standing outside. Is that the girlfriend? He teased, a slight chuckle escaping his lips. The comment flew right over Naruto's head as he nodded earnestly. Thanks for making this gift, he said, reaching for the box. Just then, Mr. Higurashi caught a glimpse of the hammers attached to the jacket under the blanket. Why are you wearing a blanket? He asked, curiosity piqued. Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he began to hurry out, but the blanket snagged on something. As he turned to free himself, the modified jacket was fully revealed to Mr. Higurashi. Panicking, Naruto faced the bewildered shopkeeper. You are in a dream, he declared, waving his hands in mystical circles, then slowly backed towards the door, opened it, and stepped halfway out. Naruto opened the door a crack once more, still waving his hands. You are still in a dream, he repeated, then with a few tugs, freed his blanket and dashed off. That boy ain't right, Mr. Higurashi muttered, shaking his head before blinking. Wait a minute. Go, go, go. Naruto yelled to Hinata as they sprinted across the bridge. Just as they were about to reach the other side, a shout came from the shop they had just left behind. Naruto, what did you do to my precious creation? The voice boomed across the distance. I played God. Naruto yelled back without slowing his pace, his voice echoing back over the bridge as he and Hinata continued their way to Training Field 4. The loud rhythmic thumping that met them as they approached was slightly disconcerting. The fact it got louder as they got closer was even more so. The green thing with giant teeth, caterpillar eyebrows causing the thumping noise from striking a training post was downright terrifying. Hello, called Naruto nervously. Who knew if the green thing would suddenly turn and start pounding on him in such a way? Rock Lee LV10. Yosh, he screamed suddenly, turning to face the newcomers. Naturally the duo took a few steps backwards from the thing. Welcome my most youthful friends. Have you come to stoke your fires of youth in the flames of hard work? He asked, completely serious. Naruto and Hinata briefly looked at each other before Naruto stepped forward. I'm Uzumaki Naruto and this is my friend, Hinata. I'm supposed to meet Tenten here this afternoon. Oh, he screamed loudly. How very youthful of our Tenten to have found such a man to date. We must fight to see if you are worthy. Before Lee could do anything, he was planted face first into the ground by a giant club. Shut up, you moron. I'm not dating him. She looked over her shoulder toward another young man and blushed slightly. Hyuga Neji LV11. Sorry about him. He's an idiot, said Tenten, stepping over the twitching boy. So you're here for that spar then? Yeah, said Naruto, his eyes a bit wide as he stared at the club Tenten was swinging about so casually. The thing was easily as big as she was. Great, as soon as Guy-sensei gets here we can get started, she said simply. She then opened a scroll to seal away the club. Naruto couldn't help but observe the club. Item: the stupid stick. Material: unknown, potentially cursed. Level requirement: LV5. Damage: 50 to 100 melee. Additional stats: +3 STR. Special effect: causes, daze, status effect. Durability: 50-50. Description: a seemingly impractical weapon due to its extreme slowness, the stupid stick holds a fearsome potential. If a blow is successfully landed, it can cause severe brain trauma, effectively dazing the opponent. Despite its cumbersome nature, the stick has a certain allure, especially to those strong enough to wield it. The mysterious origins and the potential curses binding it add to its enigmatic and dangerous allure. Ideal for warriors seeking to challenge themselves or surprise their enemies with unorthodox tactics. Closing square bracket. Naruto tried not to snicker when he then saw Lee stand up and wobble his way back to the training post. He couldn't hold it back once he saw Lee start striking the post as if nothing ever happened a minute later. Don't worry about him, nothing keeps him down for long. Clearly, Naruto said flatly. How often do you hit him with that thing? And how is he not brain damaged as a result? Tenten blatantly ignored the comment, choosing instead to start stretching and warming up. Naruto felt the weight of a hostile glare and turned to find its source. It was Neji, his eyes not fixed on Naruto, but rather piercing through Hinata, who stood quietly beside him. Hinata's eyes were cast downward, a clear sign of her discomfort and fear. Naruto's fists clenched involuntarily, a surge of anger rising within him at the sight of his friend being intimidated. He was about to confront Neji, to stand up for Hinata, when the atmosphere of the training field shifted. Another figure, resembling Lee but larger, entered the area. This new arrival was not just walking, he was walking on his hands, his feet kicking playfully in the air above him. The absurdity of the sight momentarily diffused Naruto's anger. Tenten sighed. Guy-sensei, why do you keep doing this to me? Why can't I have a normal sensei who does normal things? What did I do wrong in my previous life to deserve this? Meanwhile, Neji stood by watching, neither twitching nor acknowledging the strange man or his teammates. He simply chose to glare at Hinata. What's up with him? Naruto asked, nodding towards Neji. He's intense about the whole shinobi thing, Tenten replied. Top rookie last year. Doesn't really like me sparring with academy kids. And that's why he's giving Hinata the evil eye. Naruto's voice rose slightly, tinged with annoyance, as he observed Neji's unrelenting stare. Are you from the main family? Tenten suddenly questioned Hinata, who remained silent, her demeanor uneasy. Naruto scowled, puzzled. What's that got to do with anything? Tenten let out a long breath, turning to the large, green-clad figure. Hey, Guy-sensei, could you ref our match? She called out, her voice cutting through the tension. Yosh, said the man loudly, springing from his hands back to his feet. First, we must go over the rules. No intentional killing blows allowed. If I see you going for the kill, I will break you. The match will last until one of you is unconscious. Any questions? What are you? Naruto asked in hushed voice, his eyes glued to the giant eyebrows on the man's face. Oh ho, you have never heard of the beautiful green beast of Konoha. For I am he, but to those who know me best, I am Maida Guy. Maida Guy LV. Name: Tenten Higurashi. Status: Queen of Hands. Title: Genin. Level: 9. First Class: Civilian Shinobi. Second Class: Blacksmith. Race: Human. HP: 156 156, AC, 17, CP, 114 114. Lineage traits, keen eye, nimble fingers, class features, crafting expertise, feats, weapons master, stats, STR, 16, Dex, 24, Con, 16, Int, 12, Whiz, 12, Cha, 10, Allies, Might Guy, Rock Lee, Neji Hyuga, Konoha. Equipment, weapons, storage scrolls, armor, light shinobi armor, gear, ninja tools, crafting supplies, magic items, scroll of 1,000 blades. Description: Higurashi Tenten is a real kunoichi and takes it very seriously. As seriously as she takes being a kunoichi, she takes being a blacksmith just as much so. She was trained from a young age in both skills by her adoptive father after her adoptive mother failed to return from a mission. She has vowed to be just as strong and capable as any other shinobi. Closing square bracket. Naruto blinked several times in surprise. Wait, you can get multiple classes. I want multiple classes too. This time let's go for the wizard class. He glanced again at Tenten's total dexterity dex score, comparing it to his own attributes. Okay, so this is going to be a dex versus STR build, Naruto concluded as he removed the blanket off him. Tenten looked him over, her eyes lingering on the jacket, and her expression clearly conveyed her thoughts. Oh great, another weirdo. Lee couldn't help but shout, that is a youthful jacket. Meanwhile, Neji muttered under his breath, this is a waste of time. Hajime. Guy shouted, stirring the pair into action. Naruto lunged forward, the ground beneath him cracking like a spiderweb from the force. Tenten's eyes widened, as she instinctively leapt back to dodge, but the sheer momentum from Naruto's raw strength meant he was almost able to grasp her midair and slam her to the ground. Reacting quickly, Tenten performed a substitution jutsu without any hand signs, leaving behind a cluster of makebishi, sharp-spiked stars, in her place. Naruto winced as the spikes embedded themselves into his palms, but thankfully, his gloves prevented them from piercing his skin. He quickly recovered, spotting Tenten reappearing at a distance. With a swift motion, he threw the makebishi towards her. Tenten dodged agilely, but she watched in disbelief as the spiked stars tore through tree bark as easily as a hot knife through butter. What kind of academy student has this kind of strength? She wondered silently. From the sidelines, Maida Guy observed Naruto's display of youthful strength, with keen interest, seeing potential in the young ninja. Lee, inspired by the spectacle, sparkled with excitement, eager to test his own strength against Naruto's. Neji, however, remained unimpressed and aloof, simply snorting in response. Fate will decide the winner. Tenten quickly launched a kunai, employing the academy-style clone jutsu to create the illusion of dozens of kunai flying towards Naruto. Anticipating the attack, Naruto executed a substitution jutsu to evade, disappearing in a puff of smoke. Tenten, calculating his likely position, unleashed a barrage of shurikens. From the sidelines, Hinata shouted encouragement for the first time, "You can do it." Her voice boosted Naruto's morale as he deftly used kunai bukijutsu to deflect most of the shurikens. With agility, Naruto closed the distance between him and Tenten. As he approached, Tenten threw another kunai directly at him. Instead of deflecting it, Naruto flowed into an anti-clockwise swirling kata, maneuvering swiftly to Tenten's right. His fist was cocked, ready to strike, but Tenten was prepared. She swiftly drew a staff from her storage seal, meeting Naruto's punch head-on. The force of the impact caused the wood of the staff to bend alarmingly before it exploded from the stress, creating a smokescreen. Using the cover, Tenten spat a Senbon needle towards Naruto's ear. It barely grazed him, slicing a nick in his earlobe. Status update. Player Naruto has been inflicted with poison. Closing square bracket. Is poisoning me necessary? Just my style. You give up, and I'll give you the cure, Tenten countered. Naruto grinned and yelled, pass. He then lunged forward, landing a solid punch. Tenten reacted quickly, pulling out a shield from her storage seal. The impact sent her skidding back several feet, the shield absorbing most of the force but clearly showing the power behind Naruto's strike as Tenten felt her bones rattling. Noting that he needed to end this quickly before the poison worked its magic, Naruto opted to use Spirit Possession. Spirit Possession has been activated. Naruto began to focus more intently on Tenten's movements and posture. He noticed the way she shifted her weight onto her left foot, allowing her to utilize her left hand more effectively. Naruto noticed the slight tremble in her fingers as she reached for her weapon, indicating slight hesitation or uncertainty, maybe due to his strength build or maybe because she didn't know what to attack with, or if her attack would be something that an academy student could take. He also observed the way she held her shoulders, slightly hunched and tense, indicating that she was prepared for a quick and agile movement. Her eyes were focused, but not overly tense, indicating that she was fully present and alert. Naruto's immediately used Kunai Bukijutsu to create cover on the ground and sent shurikens spinning and circling around the dirt cloud towards Tenten. Tenten's frown indicated her surprise at Naruto's strategy. As he charged through the smoke cloud, she tried to hit him with another staff, but he skillfully dodged the blow, having anticipated her action. As he stopped his skid and sent a kunai at Tenten, she expertly parried it with her staff. That was reckless. Says who? Says common sense. Naruto scrunched his nose up in confusion and shrugged. Never heard of him. Tenten palmed her face, slowly before she took in a deep breath. Well, I'm certain he'll pay you a visit. She withdrew her summoning scroll, as several shuriken emerged between her fingers, when you're staring up at the white ceilings in the hospital. As Tenten sent the shuriken at Naruto, the boy leaned forward and twisted his head. Tenten was not a completely religious person, but even she would question if Kami had been the one to interfere on her behalf as she watched the blonde young boy headbutt a thrown shuriken with his goggles, somehow hitting it at an angle that was flat with the exact amount of force at the exact needed time. Then she watched as the ninja star ricocheted off his head and struck another one that was mid-flight, which was then sent barreling straight towards her, streaking past her cheek and leaving a cut as it whizzed by. Her jaw detached. Gee ga, I'm so sorry. Guy and Lee, star-eyed with astonishment, watched intently. Neji maintained his glare towards Hinata, who did her utmost to ignore her cousin. It's over, Guy declared, as Tenten charged with renewed vigor, her weapon, the stupid stick, aimed to deliver a knockout blow to Naruto's jaw. Team 3 and Hinata held their breath, expecting the fight to reach its definitive end. But in a twist no one saw coming, Naruto's left hand shot up, intercepting the stick's end with a kunai, as Naruto jammed it in. Meanwhile, his right hand, placed between the kunai's handle and his own jaw, cushioned the impact. The force sent him skidding backward, but he remained conscious. Can't you just go down? Tenten yelled in frustration, her voice echoing her disappointment as Naruto simply rubbed the back of his head. Guy, observing the scene, stroked his chin thoughtfully as he caught Naruto's eyes. That look, that confidence, everything about it reminded him of Shikaku Nara. He has a plan. Yosh, that's the power of youth. Guy said. Inspired, Lee couldn't contain his excitement. Sensei, I will emulate Naruto-kun's power of youth, he declared, startling Hinata enough for her to step aside. Naruto, seizing the moment, shouted, Fuin. The kunai lodged in the stick glowed ominously with an explosive seal. Tenten, recognizing the imminent danger, threw the weapon aside just as it detonated, the explosion reverberating through the field. Tenten leapt back, narrowly escaping the blast, only to find Naruto poised behind her, kunai in hand, ready to strike. In a split second, Tenten vanished in a puff of smoke, a log stuffed with explosive seals left in her place, a classic substitution. You like explosions? Then taste this. Tenten's voice rang out from the trees, her form hidden. Tenten's substitution log was filled with a lot of explosive seals, all welded together by a single fuinjutsu array. Fuin, she yelled, unleashing her counterattack. Hinata's face drained of color at the display of excessive force. But Naruto pressed his finger against the central seal of the fuinjutsu array, channeling his chakra with precision. The seals, one by one, fizzled out, rendered harmless by his intervention. Even Guy, with all his experience and knowledge, looked on in confusion and awe. Did he just neutralize it? He whispered to himself, struggling to find the right word for Naruto's feat. As the tension between Naruto and Tenten escalated, Tenten realized it was time to escalate her tactics as well. With a glint in her eye, she drew her kusarigama. She skillfully tossed the weighted end toward Naruto, intending to catch him off guard. Naruto, however, seemed to anticipate her move. He countered by throwing a log at the weapon, which, to Tenten's surprise, got ensnared by the chain. Then, Naruto grabbed the chain, as if challenging Tenten to a test of strength, a tug of war. Dumb move, Tenten scoffed, convinced she had the upper hand. I guess there is a difference between a genin and an academy student. She prepared to leap, planning to pull the log with such force that it would disorient Naruto, setting him up for a swift defeat. She thought that since Naruto had such abnormal strength, he would instinctively use it. There was one problem. Naruto had immediately figured out Tenten's plan. As she jumped, he simply released the chain in the log. It hurtled towards Tenten, who was caught off guard by the unexpected maneuver. Her eyes widened in horror as she noticed the sizzling sound emanating from the log. The explosive seals, which Naruto had cunningly reactivated, were moments away from detonation. Fuck, was all Tenten could muster, a single word that encapsulated her realization of the impending explosion. And explode it did, mid-air, sending shards of wood and metal raining down like a deadly storm. Tenten moved with incredible speed to dodge the debris, but the shockwave was unavoidable. The Kusarigama's chain, still connected to the log at the moment of the explosion, acted like a conduit. The kinetic force from the blast traveled down the chain, straight to Tenten's hands. The sudden and violent vibration jolted through her, rattling her bones and sending a painful shock through her body. It was an unexpected transfer of energy, one that she hadn't anticipated, demonstrating a physical principle where energy is transferred through connected objects, in this case, the chain acting as the medium. Recovering from the initial shock, Tenten could only grit her teeth in frustration. Naruto threw back her earlier taunt with a grin. Yes, there's a difference between an academy student and a genin. Tenten's frustration boiled over, her vein popping in anger. As the tension in the clearing escalated, Tenten reached into her pouch and extracted a large scroll. Neji couldn't help but voice his thoughts. Using your trump card against an academy student. Pathetic, he snorted, clearly unimpressed. Lee, however, wore a look of concern. Turning to Guy, he asked, Guy-sensei, shouldn't we stop Tenten? Normally, Guy would have intervened, but something in Naruto's eyes held him back. Pure confidence. With a swift movement, he took out 2 scrolls from his inventory as he crouched down, facing Tenten with a calm that belied the intensity of the moment. Sushoryu, twin rising dragons. Tenten exclaimed. Her scrolls unfurled skyward in a majestic swirl of smoke, and she leapt between them, beginning an unrelenting assault. From the scrolls, she summoned a veritable arsenal: kunai, shuriken, fuma shuriken, maces, sickles, senbon, katanas, even broadswords. Each weapon was aimed with precision, threatening to overwhelm Naruto with sheer volume and variety. But Naruto was ready. He began a dance, his movements light and agile, as his scrolls unraveled to reveal nothing but plain paper. To the onlookers, the papers swirled around him in patterns that mimicked the mesmerizing flow of a whirlpool. As he moved, Naruto infused the papers with chakra, revealing a fuinjutsu seal of storage right on the white surfaces of the scrolls. Every weapon that Tenten hurled towards him was absorbed by the scrolls as soon as it made contact, vanishing into the seal of storage. Tenten's fierce barrage was neutralized in seconds, leaving her staring in disbelief as Naruto stood confidently, his scrolls outstretched. The weapons she had relied on could now be turned against her in an instant. Tenten was no stranger to adversity, but the sight before her made her realize the precariousness of her position. She had always prided herself on her arsenal and her ability to control the battlefield with her weapons. Yet, here she was, disarmed by an academy student's clever use of fuinjutsu and scroll arts. The advantage had shifted entirely to Naruto's favor, and she knew it. With a heavy heart and a reluctant admittance of defeat, Tenten raised her hand and said, I give. The clearing fell silent. Quest name: Fight Me, survive a spar with Tenten. Status: successfully completed. Rewards granted: 200 experience points. Book: Advanced Academy Taijutsu. Special offer: 70% off coupon for any one item at Higurashi Weapons. Plus 100 reputation with Higurashi Tenten. Player Naruto has defeated an opponent who is 5 levels above him. Closing square bracket. Achievement unlocked. Name of the achievement: David vs. Goliath. Rewards: choose among the following. 1 Tenten's 1000 weapons. Closing square bracket. 2 a chain quest related to Tenten. Closing square bracket. 3 random item box. Closing square bracket. as Naruto's eyes scanned the screen in front of him. Whoa, this is a first. Alright, let's break this down, Naruto thought to himself, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Option 1. Tenten's thousand weapons. Naruto mused, imagining himself surrounded by a sea of shiny weapons. But seriously, what am I going to do with 1,000 weapons? I mean, if it were 1,000 boxes of ramen, now that would be a treasure trove. He chuckled at his own joke before a light bulb went off in his head. Wait a second, I could sell them back to Tenten, and buy a mountain of ramen. He laughed at the thought, but the practical side of him knew better. Nah, she'd probably just throw them at me for trying. Option 2. A chain quest related to Tenten. Now, that sounds more like it. Naruto's eyes sparkled with the prospect of adventure. Express, leveling up, and probably more rewards at the end. This one's got potential. And then, there's option 3, random item box. Naruto scrunched up his face in distaste. Anything, random, just spells trouble. I mean, knowing my luck, it'd probably be a box full of homework. He shuddered at the thought, a fate worse than death. Player selection. Naruto has selected option 2. Closing square bracket. Status. Please wait until the quest is initiated. Closing square bracket. Naruto's moment was abruptly interrupted by a cough, and he suddenly realized all eyes were on him. What? He asked, genuinely confused. Did I hit you too hard? You were poking things in the air and smiling like a retard, Tenten teased. Naruto nearly facepalmed. He had completely forgotten he wasn't alone. Wait, didn't I have spirit possession? Why did I do something as dumb as trying to use the system in front of everyone? Oh, it deactivated, he thought to himself, then sighed in relief realizing at least the system wasn't visible to anyone else. Anyway, this fight was a draw, Tenten declared, trying to bring the conversation back to the matter at hand. No, you lost, Naruto countered, unable to let that comment slide. As if, I just didn't go all out against you, Tenten shot back, her pride not allowing her to admit defeat. Naruto and Hinata exchanged deadpan looks, clearly not buying Tenten's claim. It was then Lee, unable to contain himself, burst out, Tenten. That's not the truth. You went all out and you lost to Naruto-kun's youthful spirit. Naruto couldn't help but sweat drop. Thanks, bushy brows, he said, his voice dripping with confusion. Tenten's glare shifted to Lee. Lee, I am your teammate, you should support me, she insisted. I cannot support a lie. Lee exclaimed passionately. That's right, Lee, we don't support lying women. Guy joined in. Yeah, Guy-sensei, we don't support women. Guy quickly corrected him with a hard smack. No, Lee, I said lying women. Yes, Guy-sensei, Lee replied, a bit chastened as he took out a notebook and started writing, presumably a reminder to himself about the difference. Everyone just stood there, sweat dropped at the scene that just unfolded with Lee and Guy. Breaking the awkward silence, Tenten finally spoke up. Anyways, I'll admit it, I underestimated you and you won. She conceded, acknowledging Naruto's victory with a hint of reluctance but genuine respect. Hearing this, Naruto couldn't contain his excitement and cheered loudly, Yata. Suddenly Tenten's demeanor switched to be completely serious. Oh, and thanks for helping my dad out with those deliveries while I'm away on a mission. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, sure, said Naruto bashfully. He wasn't used to receiving such a genuine thanks from anybody. It had never really happened before. So I guess we kinda got off on the wrong foot. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, future greatest Hokage of Konoha. His hand extended. Tenten almost wanted to laugh at the words, but then regarded the tone in which he said it. It wasn't just some open, empty statement, no, it possessed the same level of conviction that Lee had whenever he said he would beat Neji, or the same level of belief that Neji had when he said that Lee's fate was determined. It was the same factual manner that Guy-sensei said he was the greatest taijutsu specialist in Konoha, and the same manner in which she had said she would become a strong kunoichi. She smirked. Tenten, future greatest weapons mistress of Konoha. They shook, and Naruto once more flashed another grin. You know, you're the first real genin I've met and you're pretty cool. If all genin are like this I can't wait to get my headband too. She blinked. Once, twice, thrice. Oh yeah, you're still in the academy. Naruto looked at Tenten's words in confusion. How did you headbutt a thrown shuriken in midair and redirect it enough to bounce off another one? That sort of innate shurikenjutsu skill was outright insane. It took key focus and concentration to pull something like that off, and even after a year of practice, Tenten could only so much as bounce one shuriken off another enough to go in a small weak curve, whereas her goal was to learn how to endlessly ricochet them back to back, to the point she would be able to make them go in a perfect circle if need be. It's a secret. A great secret from the one and only Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, you are an academy student. Yeah. What did you think I was? An extraordinarily gifted street rat. Oi, what kind of aspiring ninja wears a torn jacket with hammers duct taped to it? Fair enough. And what is that posture? Is that a taijutsu stance or is the ground recoiling from your sexual advances? Big woof coming from the gal who lost to the orange-wearing hammered sex offender. Wait, that sounded way cooler in my head. Tenten sighed. Alright, looks like we're going to have a lot to work on. Work on what now? Tenten cracked her knuckles. You probably don't know how you pulled off that trick with the shuriken, but I know it's not luck. I'm going to figure out how you did it and repeat it if it's the last thing I do. Naruto blinked. What? A notification popped up on Naruto's screen. Opening square bracket. Alert. Chain quest. Quest title. Tenten's ambition. Objective. Train with Tenten, a kunoichi aspiring to be the greatest weapon specialist, for a week. Demonstrate extraordinary shuriken jutsu skills. Closing square bracket. Rewards. Dungeon key, feat, weapon master. Penalty for failure, severe diarrhea. Closing square bracket. Naruto's jaw dropped as he read the rewards. A dungeon key and a feat were too good to pass up. He made the right choice with option 2. Tenten, you can do whatever you want in your free time, but for now we have to train. Neji said as he turned to Naruto. You and the talentless trash can run along now. Real ninja have training now, said Neji. His voice was ice cold when he spoke. Just as Naruto was gearing up for a confrontation with Neji, Hinata intervened, grabbing his shirt. Let's go, Naruto-kun, she urged softly, her voice tinged with concern. Naruto let out a sigh, the tension in his body easing as he looked at Hinata. He realized that getting into a fight wasn't worth it, especially not with Hinata worriedly looking at him. Reluctantly, he stepped back, deciding to leave the situation behind. I still say you're a jerk, but that's fine. We should hit the road anyway. See you around, stabby girl, bushy brows, and super bushy brows. Naruto ran to join his friend before the weapon girl could turn him into a pincushion again. As they walked away, Naruto turned to Hinata, his curiosity evident. What was that guy's problem? That's Neji. He's the most talented in the Hyuga clan, Hinata replied, her voice soft. Naruto frowned, not wanting to admit it, but knowing Neji's level was formidable. Still, that doesn't explain why he's such a jerk to you. Hinata hesitated. I'm from the main family, and he's from the branch family. So, he's jealous. Naruto guessed. No, he hates me. He believes I don't deserve to be the clan heir, she said quietly. Naruto scoffed. Bullshit. You can easily surpass that guy. Hinata blushed at his confidence in her, but deep down, she doubted her ability to match Neji. Naruto's words, though encouraging, felt like a distant dream. Noticing Hinata's silence and doubt, Naruto asked, do you want to surpass Neji? Hinata hesitated. I don't know, she admitted softly. Naruto stopped walking, his gaze intense. When you decide you want to surpass him, let me know. I'll help you. His voice was serious, filled with a determination that surprised Hinata. She wanted to laugh it off, but there was something about Naruto's earnestness that made her believe, even if just for a moment, that it might be possible. Naruto turned to Hinata with a curious look on his face. Hinata, can I ask you something? He said. Yeah, Hinata replied, her voice soft and shy. Use your eye thingy on my finger, Naruto instructed, pointing towards where the system window appeared to him. Hinata used her Byakugan to look at Naruto's finger. After a few seconds, the two of them were quiet. So, Naruto prompted, eager to hear her observation. What? Hinata was completely lost. Is there something above my finger? Naruto pressed, hoping for some confirmation of the system's presence. No, Hinata answered honestly. Naruto couldn't help but grin, realizing that the system was truly invisible to others. Hinata stood in disbelief, unsure if what was happening was a joke. Naruto paused, then sighed heavily and slapped his face lightly. "Hinata," he called softly. "Yes," Hinata responded, her voice a whisper. Naruto handed her a small box, which she took hesitantly. "Look, I don't have many friends, so this whole friendship thing is new to me. Uruka-sensei said I should give you a gift. I tried to think of something," asked Mr. Higurashi for advice, "and, here." He finished, catching his breath as Hinata smiled and opened the box. Inside, she found a beautiful necklace, designed like the yin and yang symbol, crafted from two metallic features, one orange and the other purple. Hinata noticed a small engraving on the necklace, "To the best girlfriend ever." Her face turned a deep shade of red, and she looked like she might faint as she stared at Naruto, her breath caught in her throat. "What?" Naruto asked, looking concerned as she pointed to the engraving. "Yeah, so, you're a girl and my friend, so, girlfriend," Naruto explained, a bit awkwardly. Hinata couldn't help but laugh, so hard that tears began to roll down her cheeks. She clutched the necklace to her heart and managed to say, "Thank you." Naruto sighed in relief, happy to see her reaction. Hinata looked down at the necklace again, her eyes lingering on the word, girlfriend. She didn't have the heart to explain the usual meaning to Naruto, in fact, she didn't want to. She cherished this moment just as it was, confusion and all. Tenten had always wanted a cute little kohai. There was the appeal to picking up a junior that she could buy sweets, pet, pamper and have him her help her sharpen her weapons with a big loving smile. Perhaps it came with the fact that she had been the Nei-chan of the orphanage she had grown up in, not in the motherly, caregiver sense, but in the tomboyish, "you mess with me, you enjoy the taste of sand," manner. Her somewhat crass manner and a slight tendency for violence had probably what had inspired her obsession with blades and weapons of all sorts, and it of course helped that she thought playing with dolls was the most ridiculous thing in the freaking world. She still remembered the first doll she had been given, considering the fact that she had given it an extensive surgical process by retrofitting the hands with sewing needles and the legs with scissors. Of course, the other girls had not appreciated the beauty of Princess Scissorhands, abbreviated to Seeheim, the scissor-handed, needle-legged princess doll. Then, she had not understood why the matron had been so appalled. Seeheim was far more useful that way to help in cutting and sewing together what little clothes they had possessed as of then. When she found out that she was being adopted by a ninja, she was excited, and her excitement went over the roof when she found out her adopted dad was a blacksmith, and her adopted mom was a kunoichi. The first few years were fun. She could still remember a memory where her dad had replaced Seeheim and all the other stuff she had with rounded dull things. She could still remember how she argued with her parents about the dull things. "It is too round on the top. It needs to be pointy. Round is not scary. Pointy is scary. This will put a smile on the faces of the enemy boys in her class." Her parents laughed at her. She, in her anger, had told them, "I hate you." It was the tantrum of a child, and she regretted saying it because, in the next week, her mom was Kia on a mission. She could still remember how her dad gave her Seeheim back. "What did you say that time? Round is not scary. Pointy is scary. Get ready to learn all the pointy, scary things in the world. I am going to make them all not scary." From then on, she began training to be a weapon specialist. Maybe it was the regret of the last fight she had with her mother, or maybe it was her father's actions to start teaching her about weapons to train her to be strong. All in all, Tenten never got over her love and somewhat obsession with pointy things. Regardless, the weapons enthusiast wanted someone who was also equally passionate and shared a love of the sharp and pointy. Of course, this was somewhat of an idealistic wish that she would sigh and ponder, than something that she ever saw coming into fruition. Right up until the moment that she had found Uzumaki Naruto and taken him under her wing. Except, well, Uzumaki Naruto was not the cute little kohai she wanted, but quite possibly the one she needed. "Come back here you." Assuming she did not kill him first. "I'm sorry. Hello sorry, I'm Ten. Get ready to eat pointy metal." As it had turned out, she really wanted to find out if she had been a little bit too enthusiastic in seeing his display, and then she wondered if it was mere, simple, dumb luck that had saved her career as a kunoichi from coming to a terrible end. So of course, she had needed to confirm that hypothesis by recreating the scenario and seeing if indeed, Uzumaki Naruto could curve and redirect shuriken with a headbutt. Of course, this time around she had tossed rubber shuriken at him, because attempting to use the real ones could most possibly end in disaster. The results had been outstanding. 7 out of 10 times, Uzumaki Naruto had successfully pulled off a ricocheting magic tricks with the shuriken that were thrown at him, and 7 out of 10 was a very promising result. So then, it came her own turn to practice and see how to pull off the same tricks, and she had asked him to stand and toss the rubber shuriken and kunai at her. She had closed her eyes, took in a deep breath, and then steeled her gaze as he said he was going to launch, only to open her eyes and see a rubber chicken flying through the air. She was not kidding. A rubber chicken, with its beak out in front, its wings spread to the sides like an eagle. She had been so stunned at the sight of the flying avian toy, she could not react when it had smacked beak first into her eye and sent her tumbling to the ground. Chicken 1, Tenten 0. Of course, Naruto's cacophonous laughter had merely added insult to the injury, which led to her current situation of her chasing the blonde around the field while unloading the full wrath of her weaponry. Was it overkill? Maybe. But you try explaining to Maida Guy, Rock Lee and Hyuga Neji that the reason you now had a large black eye was because an academy student clocked you in the face with a rubber chicken. She grinned as she caught a hold of the fleeing blonde's legs with her kusarigama, the chain tying neatly across his left ankle, as she jerked the chain back and proceeded to quite literally reel him in as though she was a fisherwoman on a croaky old boat in the middle of a vast lake. Well, look what we've got. The catch of the day, the famous orange flopper. She grinned as she watched him futilely scrape his nails against the grass in an attempt to escape. Eventually he just stopped bothering and let himself be dragged, until he came to stop directly beside her foot, and she gave him her kindest grin. You know, I kind of feel really bad for fishes right now. She rose an eyebrow. Just for fishes? No. Yes, well, you know what I mean, but I kinda also don't know what I mean. If you were any more eloquent, I'd need a dictionary. He gave a sheepish grin. That black eye goes really well with your hair ttebeo. I'm not taking fashion compliments from someone who thinks wearing burnt orange clothing is fashion. She sighed as she shook her head, paying little heed to his chant about how orange was the best. And he was a fashion icon. The sun had barely peeked over the horizon, due to both of them arriving bright and early for the training. Dressed in her training clothes that was more or less a refitted martial arts GI, rather than her normal attire, she really shuddered when Naruto showed up, fully clad in his orange clothing. At least it wasn't an orange jumpsuit. Speaking of which, how in the world did a rubber chicken have enough force to give her a black eye? For Cammy's sakes, the only thing that was capable of doing that was one of Rock Lee's punches or kicks, but of course, Lee was a gentleman at heart, and his attacks never aimed for her face. Wait, why in the world do you even have a rubber chicken in the first place? Naruto had stopped listing off the vague uses and benefits of the color orange in civilian fashion to stop and gave her a stare. Oh yeah, that. I was just trying to see fate will answer my question. She blinked. What? Was this Providence? Was the fate douche, a cute douche, but a douche nonetheless, onto something when he kept insisting that there was a divine will in place for each and every being? She shook her head. Cammy forbid Neji was right. Why? Because I want to see if I can get some trap master skills by using unconventional things as traps and stuff. You want to become a trap master, meaning you want to become a shinobi that uses traps to fight. He gave an enthusiastic series of nods. I don't see that working out well for you at all. What do you mean? She pinched his cheek, dragging it, only to blink as she realized that the whisker marks felt like grooves in his skin, and as he gave an incoherent grumble. What I'm saying, chicken man, is that you look more like someone fit for flashy ninjutsu or taijutsu. She grinned. Though mostly ninjutsu, because you need to grow about a couple of more inches to make sure your opponents don't lose sight of you in a taijutsu brawl, chibi. Oi, I'm not short. And the Hokage is a young bachelor with women vying for his attention. Naruto frowned. He opened his mouth for a second as if to say something, but then changed his mind and closed it as he grinned. I don't think Gigi would find that funny. She shrugged. His inability to see the comedic value doesn't mean it's true. Naruto gave another wide grin. Well, it was true, once upon a time. It's not like Hokage Gigi was born old. Tenten sighed. You're missing the point. Being an ensnarement specialist is something that takes time, dedication and planning. If you want to plant a trap for your enemy, you are working on the assumption that you know where your enemy is, how he will react, and a plethora of different uncertain variables that will contribute to the success of your traps. And that is almost never the case in a battle. Ensnarement specialist. Awesome. I didn't know there was already a title for it. Datbeo. I am going add to the list. Yeah, if I am going to become the best Hokage, I need to have some kind of skills in taijutsu, ninjutsu. Her left eye twitched slightly. First of all, the term ensnarement specialist doesn't exist. I just made that up on the spot, and I think you're still missing the point. Huh. No, I get it. She gave him a flat look. Really now? He placed a finger on his chin. Say, I'm on a super secret mission to guard the greatest bowl of ramen in the world, but then, shinobi from the hidden village of noodle broth, are trying to steal it. If all I've got is my traps and stuff with me, I need to know which road they'll use to try and get the ramen, how many of them they are, and whether my traps can stop them all and keep the ramen safe all at the same time. 'Cause if I don't know all of it, my traps could fail to even catch them, and they'll get away with the ramen ttebeo. She blinked. That's one way of explaining it. But yes, you need foreknowledge if you intend to succeed as a shinobi using traps. If you work on a team that has a hyuga, a sensor or a tracker of any sort, you'd have that aspect mostly covered, but even then, there exists the possibilities of the traps failing, or of them missing your targets altogether. Successful trapping of opponents was something she knew about because she had dabbled a bit on it earlier, utilizing things such as bear traps and paper bomb mines. Even with Neji's Byakugan telling her where the opponents were coming from in order for them to plant down her traps, it had still not done much good. Their opponent had attempted to flank them, missing her traps completely and going all the way around to attack them from behind. Any attempt she had made to lure them towards the traps had only succeeded, until they realized they were traps there, and then proceeded to avoid it like the plague, making most of her work pointless. Sensors and ninjutsu experts were also the bane of all trap settings, because your opponent either sense the traps miles away or simply barrel through it with ninjutsu. So, should I remove it from this list? What do you think I should do? She turned her gaze back to the boy, his two brilliant blue orbs looking bright and eager as he playfully tossed a rubber chicken in his hands. Me? Well yeah, you're the expert. He rubbed the back of his head. Should I still try and get an, ensnarement specialist feat? Or, well, should I? You know. Tenten scratched her head as she glanced around the area. It was strange for someone to come for her for advice on specializations, as Lee had never done it, Neji would never do it, and Guy did not need to do it. Still, she stared around her team's training ground as she contemplated a way to make Naruto's goals of utilizing traps become more effective. Training ground 9 was nothing special. There was a small pond, numerous trees, and a kicking post that had been abused to hell and back by the furious feet of Lee. The training grounds were somewhat large, as expected from Konoha, and it was filled with the luscious green trees and a thick forest covering. She turned her attention to the several bullseyes and stationary targets that she had also abused to hell and back by puncturing them with as many shuriken and kunai as she could. All of them hit the center though, now having extraordinary aim, although it had not always been the case, and once upon a time she couldn't even toss a rolled-up paper ball into a basket 3 feet in front of her. There's an old saying, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed. Many people interpret this as the idea of inspiration finding us in our most cherished place or act. For Tenten, that place might have been the training ground where she relentlessly practiced on her training dummies, unleashing the full extent of her arsenal. Yet, as she stood there, surrounded by the familiar sights of punctured targets and the comforting weight of shuriken in her hand, inspiration was as elusive as a shadow in the night. How can I help this orange idiot? Traps, after all, weren't the most glamorous aspect of being a ninja. They were seen as a means to an end, slowing down pursuers or securing an escape route. Not exactly the stuff of legends. Naruto's ambition to become a trap master seemed, at best, a quirky diversion from the traditional shinobi path. At worst, it was a one-way ticket to obscurity. After all, how many tales of heroism sung praises of traps over the direct confrontations of ninjutsu, taijutsu, or the elegance of kenjutsu? Traps were practical, yes, but hardly the making of a Hokage. As she mulled over these thoughts, Tenten couldn't help but feel a growing frustration. Traps, by their nature, were defensive, strategic. Against an average person, perhaps they held some surprise. But a high-level ninja. Most would dismantle or outright destroy a trap with a mere flick of their chakra-infused fingers. The reality was harsh. Physical traps, especially those devoid of chakra, seemed fundamentally inferior to the other, more robust techniques in a ninja's arsenal. Ah, hello. Tenten, you still in there? Her attention rapidly turned back to the blonde, gazing at her up with eager eyes. She wanted to tell him that he was still an academy student, and he should not be bothering so much about any of this now, considering his Jonin-sensei could just come up one day and kick all of his hard work to the curb. She likewise wanted to tell him that utilizing traps was not in his best interests, considering how he seemed to be a walking ball of chakra, and he would excel at becoming a ninjutsu tank. She wanted to shake her head and contemplate what in the world she was doing, spending her Saturday morning off tutoring someone. This was one of the only 2 days when she was usually free from Guy, his eccentric mini-me and the fake douche. What had spurred her to come out so early, and start training to learn how to deflect shuriken with a headbutt? It sounded like something Lee and Guy would do when they were fired up and did not think about the larger picture. Tenten, you never really wanted to be a weapons specialist, did you? Naruto's voice had drew her from her thoughts, and she turned back to the blonde, whose eyes were the same blue, but rather than sparkle, they seemed to have a curious depth to them, like someone had dipped their hands into water and caused continuous wavy ripples. Then her mind interpreted the words and identified their semantic meaning together as sound around her started to slowly go mute. Well, she had never wanted to become a weapons specialist, even though she did like the sharp pointy objects. No, her true dream was to become like her role model, like Senju Tsunade, one of the Densetsu no Sanin, and the world's greatest and foremost medical practitioner. She had wanted to become a medic, a healer, someone who would aid her companions on the battlefield when they were wounded, someone who would ease and comfort bruises and pain. There were 1,000 people who could kill and there were a dozen kunoichi who only knew how to seduce, but there were very few individuals who could heal and restore, because that was a truly difficult task. One that had been too difficult for her, so it had seemed. Dreams were fragile, and reality came crashing upon the realization that she did not have the chakra control to become a medic. There was no hopes of her ever saving life in a profession that demanded all she did was to take it. So in the end, her dream tarnished, realization that her lifelong idol was a person she could never work to become, she had thrown herself into weapons instead. It was also around time she lost her mom. She did love and care for weapons, she really did, but there was always the nagging reminder at the back of her mind that the only reason she was a weapons specialist in the first place was because she had failed her original dream. Her goal of becoming a weapons master was just a cheap substitute. Still, no one should have known this, or at least, remembered it. Not her sensei, not her teammates, and not even her adoptive father. She gave him a steady gaze. Why do you ask? What do you mean? No one has asked me that before. Ever. She would remember easily if there had been anyone that had brought it up, but there was none. Questions she had gotten instead was about how she got so good at weapons and why she seemed to love them so much, but not one person had looked upon her and asked, "You didn't really want to do this, did you?" It was like looking at a pro fisherman, smiling with a giant shark in his hands, and then telling him that he never wished to be a fisherman and then somehow being correct. What could possibly even draw that conclusion? Well, I noticed that. He looked as though he was going to continue, before shaking his head. Never mind. It's not important. Her lips pursed. Not important. No, there was not a chance in hell that she was going to take that. Oh no, you don't. If you've got something to say, you'd better say it. He seemed doubly reluctant and it made her more annoyed. What was he hiding? Was he secretly some kind of stalker that had been following or was obsessed with her? It seemed unlikely for that to even be the case because she was certain she was a good enough kunoichi to have noticed someone wearing bright orange with bright blonde hair stalking her. So what, you just looked at me and it came to you just like that? That's not possible. What tipped it off? Well, he rubbed his chin, his eyes still giving that strange depth. It's kinda in the way you throw. She rose an eyebrow. In the way I throw. What kind of vague ridiculous statement was that? How did the way she threw her kunai and weapons indicate anything of the sort? That was like saying that you could tell a husband was cheating because he always hoarded family funds, or a woman was a murderer because she cut meat at ungodly speeds. She grabbed him softly by the collar and gave him the nicest smile she could muster. Naru-chan, would you kindly mind explaining what that means? Gah, that's the only way I can explain it, Datbeo. A pair of scissors was rapidly in her hands, summoned easily from her scroll in a puff of smoke, and her smile was becoming strained further and further as the seconds ticked by, and Naruto's face still looked reluctant. Try harder, or the orange gets it. Wait, hey now, there's no reason for that. She gave him the look. The one she had first given Neji when he thought he could get away with talking down to her the same way he talked down to Lee. The one she got whenever someone insulted or called her one-dimensional for her choice in relying only on weapons, and the one that had usually sent tall bullies twice her size reeling back before her fists and even began to shatter their noses. There was no mirth in her eyes at this point. I don't mind getting a black eye because of hijinks, but what I do mind, is when someone who literally met me yesterday can give me the googly eyes, and then suddenly come to conclusions about things that not even my own teammates and Jonin-sensei realized. So either you start talking, or I start snipping. His reluctance seemed to remain strong as his face squirmed in a myriad of expressions, right until the snipping of the scissors took off a large portion of the orange jumpsuit. Alright, you throw like Sasuke Tem. She blinked, the scissors coming to a stop in her hands. The name was infamous at this point, and you would be hard-pressed to find anyone who did not know Uchiha Sasuke, sole survivor of the Uchiha massacre. Explain. Now. He groaned. When you throw, you don't really give off that super awesome vibe of you saying, I can do this even though you really can. You give off that vibe saying, I have to do this. And what's the difference? Uzumaki Naruto gave her a shrug, his shoulders raising and dropping in rapid succession, and his depth-filled blue eyes hit her brown straight on. I can become the Hokage, but I don't have to become the Hokage. Not a word was uttered as she gazed into his eyes, and then eventually detached her grip from his collar, as she snapped the scissors close with a flick of her wrist. I think we're done here. Oi, what's that supposed to mean? What dia mean we're done? She dusted off her training attire as she gave the annoyingly perceptive blonde a final look. She wasn't even sure if the blonde understood the insinuations of his own statement, or perhaps he did, and maybe he was pretending not to. Hey, Tenten, where are you going, Ibeo? The clearing was left with only a blonde boy within it, slowly scratching his head. Was it what I said? But she's the one who wanted me to say it. So why'd she get angry, Ibeo? He proceeded to irritably scratch his head. Skill, Spirit Possession, has been deactivated. Quest completion, Tenten's ambition. Status, successfully completed. Rewards granted. Dungeon key. Feat, Weapon Master. Tenten walked, one foot after the other, mechanically, her mind a cacophony of thoughts and echoes. Naruto's words reverberated in her head, each repetition like a hammer striking the same spot, over and over. She tried to push them away, to find a counter-argument, a rebuttal, but nothing came. His observation, innocent yet so piercing, had unearthed something she had buried deep within. The morning air was cool, but she barely felt it. Her steps, initially slow and pensive, gained momentum. Her hands, clenched into fists, swung by her sides. The training ground, usually a place of focus and discipline, now felt like a cage, trapping her with her own swirling thoughts. Why did it have to be him? She thought bitterly. Why did Naruto, of all people, have to see through me? Everything about her suddenly seemed empty now. Tenten hadn't just settled for becoming a weapons specialist, it was more than that, it was a connection to her mother. But as she reflected, it all felt like a hollow justification. Even though she had a passion for weapons, it didn't mean she couldn't have pursued healing instead. But circumstances held her back, similar to how Lee was unable to use chakra, and Neji lacked the resources to fully utilize his talents. The realization that she might have settled for what was within reach made Tenten's blood simmer with frustration. It felt like an insult, a dismissal of her potential. In her team, she had felt somewhat normal, but the truth hit her hard. She was just like them, individuals whose ambitions were restrained by fate's cruel grip. Damn you, Neji, and your damn fate nonsense, she muttered under her breath. Tenten had prided herself on being unreadable, on keeping her dreams and disappointments locked away. Yet, this boy, hardly more than a stranger, had unwittingly cracked her facade. As she walked, her gaze fell upon a tree. It was tall, robust, its bark rough and scarred from numerous training sessions. Without thinking, she stopped in front of it. Her breathing was heavy, not from physical exertion, but from the weight of unshed emotions. Her hand instinctively reached for a kunai, a movement refined by countless hours of practice. With precision, she launched it, watching as it buried itself into the tree's bark. She retrieved it, only to strike once more. Each thrust carried a storm of questions. Why, how, what if? What if she had broadened her focus within the medical field beyond just medical ninjutsu? She could have been an on-field surgeon, providing critical care in the heart of battle. Or perhaps a poison maker, crafting toxins that could turn the tide of conflict. Maybe even a pill pharmacist, developing medicines that could bolster her comrades on the front line. And what if she had taken a year to hone her control further? What if she stopped shackling herself with the mindset of defeat? As Tenten continued to hurl her kunai and shurikens with increasing speed, her thoughts were interrupted by a memory of Naruto's words. When you throw, you don't really give off that super awesome vibe of you saying, I can do this even though you really can't. You give off that vibe saying, I have to do this. The recollection fueled her anger, sending her weapons flying faster and with more intensity. Why? She thought with each strike. Why couldn't I be what I wanted to be? Why did I have to settle? The kunai's rhythm was relentless, but the tree remained steadfast. With each strike, her frustration grew. The physical exertion began to take its toll, her arm aching, her breath ragged. But she couldn't stop. The tree was her opponent now, a stand-in for all the dreams she couldn't reach, for the healer she couldn't become. I am strong, she thought, her strikes growing more forceful. I've worked hard. I've made a name for myself. Why isn't that enough? Why does his observation unsettle me so? She wanted to scream, to let out all the frustration, the anger, the sense of inadequacy. But then, as her arm raised for another strike, she paused. The kunai hovered in the air, her arm trembling. The tree in front of her bore the marks of her outburst, the bark chipped and scarred. But it was still standing, still strong. Not like her. Tenten lowered her arm, the kunai slipping from her grasp. Her breaths came in short gasps, her body covered in sweat. She leaned against the tree, its rough bark pressing against her back. Her eyes closed, and for the first time in what felt like hours, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her emotions. I am not who I wanted to be, she admitted to herself. But that doesn't mean I've failed. I've just. The bell above the door jingled as Naruto pushed his way into Higurashi Weapons, the familiar scent of metal and oil greeting him. The shop was lined with all manner of weapons, from sleek kunai to massive swords. At the counter stood Mr. Higurashi, polishing a particularly menacing-looking axe. Oh, Naruto, why are you here? Higurashi asked, a playful twinkle in his eye. Don't tell me, my daughter has caught your eye. Naruto looked genuinely confused, his brows knitting together. Higurashi-san, how else would I see your daughter if she didn't catch my eye? He asked earnestly. Higurashi couldn't help but sweat drop at Naruto's response. Of course, the academy student was too dense to understand the subtle implication. What do you want? He asked, trying to steer the conversation back on track. I want to get a weapon, Naruto said, his voice filled with a determination that seemed at odds with his usual cheerful demeanor. A weapon? Higurashi looked surprised, a hint of amusement in his voice. Did my daughter rub off on you? Naruto's cheeks flushed a bright red. He had come to buy a weapon to test out his new, Weapon Master, feat. Feat. Weapon Master, passive. Level. N.A. Description. The Weapon Master feat grants the user unparalleled mastery over any chosen weapon, transcending conventional combat skills. Upon wielding the selected weapon, the user gains instant proficiency and heightened combat capabilities. Closing square bracket. Passive boosts. Instant mastery. Immediate, intuitive understanding of the chosen weapon. Attack precision and skill with the weapon are maximized. Closing square bracket. Weapon-related skills. All skills related to weapons are upgraded to level 10, achieving mastery without specific form. Closing square bracket. Active boosts. Master's Strike. Once per combat, you can declare a Master's Strike. This attack automatically hits and deals critical damage. This ability resets after a short or long rest. Closing square bracket. Enhanced combat efficiency. Attacks with the chosen weapon are executed with supreme proficiency and effectiveness. Closing square bracket. Before either could continue their conversation, the door creaked open again. Both men turned to see Tenten standing there, her appearance strikingly different from her usual composed self. Her hair was disheveled, strands sticking out at odd angles, and her clothes were stained with sweat and bits of bark. There were traces of dirt on her face, and her eyes held a mix of exhaustion and lingering frustration. "You got some nerve coming here asking for a weapon," Tenten said, her voice carrying an edge that confused both her father and Naruto. Higurashi looked between his daughter and Naruto, a puzzled expression on his face. "Tenten, is everything all right?" Naruto, still red-faced and now slightly intimidated, stammered, I just came to buy a weapon, Tenten." "I didn't mean to," Naruto began, but Tenten's voice thundered through the shop, cutting him off. "Shut up," she shouted, her voice sharp as the blades surrounding them. She marched up to the counter, her movements swift and decisive. Her hand reached out, gripping a sword that lay there. "You think I wanted to give up?" Tenten's voice cracked with emotion, her eyes fiercely locked onto Naruto's. "I never did, Naruto. I never gave up. My dream wasn't just to be a medic like Tsunade. No, it was to be like Tsunade, a woman of strength, a legend, a beacon for others. I didn't give up on being a medic. I chose my own path." She unsheathed the sword with a flourish, the metal gleaming under the shop's lights. "You see this sword? I made it. I poured my heart and soul into it. So, tell me, am I abandoning some childhood dream, or am I forging my own destiny?" Her voice crescendoed, filled with a passion that shook the very air. "In 3 months, Naruto, at the Chunin exams, I will show you in the world I haven't settled. I haven't given up. I chose to be a weapons specialist, not because it was all I could do, but because it was what I chose to do." With a swift, fluid motion, she cut her own hand with the sword, a line of red appearing against her skin. Her father gasped, and Naruto's eyes widened in alarm. She threw the bloodied sword towards Naruto, who caught it instinctively, his hand trembling. But Tenten's voice rose above their concerns, filled with a furious determination. "Naruto, I never gave up on anything. I didn't settle for second best. I chose this path to become my own kunoichi, to be a woman that others would look up to. I will be Tenten, the strongest weapons specialist in the world." Her declaration reverberated through the shop, the weapons on the walls seeming to resonate with her words. As Tenten's glare met his, a system notification flashed before Naruto's eyes, startling him. Naruto's paw. Alert. Chain quest. Quest name. Tenten's Awakening. Description. Tenten is on the verge of unlocking the class, Herald of Hephaestus. Fight her and force her to awaken. Reward. A loyal ally in Tenten. Closing square bracket. Failure. Tenten's death. Action required. Acceptance or declination of quest. I took a deep breath, the weight of the katana feeling just right in my hands. Time for reflection was over, it was time to act. Even though I had only known Tenten for about a week, she had quickly become a cool friend, one I respected and trained with. A fleeting thought crossed my mind, isn't death because of some words a bit much, but I pushed it aside and focused on the moment as I watched Tenten walk away. Fight me, I called out firmly. Tenten stopped in her tracks and turned to face me. What? I swung the katana back and forth, feeling its balance and edge. As I did, something clicked inside me, activating the weapon master feat. My stance shifted instinctively, morphing into that of a seasoned swordsman. I gripped the katana with both hands, my knees slightly bent, the blade angled forward, poised and ready. Why wait for the Chunin exams? Show me the true power of the weapon specialist, Tenten, I challenged, my voice serious and steady. Tenten's expression hardened in response, her eyes narrowing with focus as she gripped her own katana, mirroring my stance. Mr. Higurashi, witnessing the unfolding scene, took a deliberate step back, his expression a mix of concern and understanding. This was a pivotal moment for his daughter, a clash that seemed necessary for both her and me. I launched into the duel with a burst of speed, my katana cutting through the air as I closed the gap between Tenten and me in an instant. My blade arced down in a smooth, controlled strike aimed at her midsection. Tenten's reflexes snapped into action, her blade rising swiftly to intercept mine. The sound of metal clashing echoed sharply as our swords met. Without missing a beat, I unleashed a series of 3 rapid strikes, each aimed to test her defenses. Tenten moved with a fluid grace, her katana an extension of her will, perfectly synchronized with her movements. She parried each attack, her blade redirecting mine with precise, clean motions. The force of my assault briefly pushed her hand upward, but she skillfully used the momentum to pivot her body, countering with a swift, powerful horizontal swing aimed back at me. Our swords clashed once more, the impact resonant enough to send a shockwave through the shop around us. Shelves rattled, and the hanging weapons vibrated from the force of our exchange. This is the first time I'm experiencing this, I thought, gritting my teeth as I maintained my focus. Sword duels were intense, and every move had to be precise. With a resounding boom, Tenten and I both stepped back, granting ourselves a brief respite. The tension hung heavy in the air as she lunged forward again, her katana slicing through the air with lethal intent. I found myself driven back, each block and parry I performed pushing me further toward the defensive. Tenten's strategy was clear, she was trying to control the flow of the fight, dictating the pace and direction with her aggressive approach. I kept my footing light, shifting my weight from one leg to the other, ready to change direction at a moment's notice. My arms worked in tandem, my right hand gripping the katana firmly for slashes and cuts, while my left hand assisted in guiding the blade for more controlled blocks. As Tenten's blade came at me in a diagonal slash, I sidestepped, redirecting her momentum to throw her off balance. This opened her up for a counterattack. Seizing the opportunity, I aimed a quick thrust towards her side, trying to slip past her defenses. But Tenten was quick to recover, twisting her body to let my blade slide harmlessly away, her counter-move a mere blur. My movements melded agility with precision, narrowly dodging Tenten's relentless strikes. In a fierce display of her skill, Tenten's blade sliced through a display stand, severing it cleanly in half. Debris clattered to the floor, yet she didn't pause, her katana a continuous blur as she pressed her assault. As Tenten executed a complex wrist twist, her katana arced swiftly towards my head. Reacting in the nick of time, I raised my sword, the guard intercepting the blow. The force jolted me backward, but I quickly regained my balance and countered, my blade sweeping upward to leave a shallow cut across Tenten's shoulder. "Do you want to continue?" I asked, my concern breaking through as I noticed her determination not waning. Her eyes narrowed, flames of determination igniting within them. She responded with an EI attack, a swift draw and cut technique from the scabbard, that caught me off guard. The sheer power of her strike overwhelmed my defenses, pushing me back and nearly toppling me over. Switching tactics swiftly, I dropped my katana and unleashed a barrage of shurikens and kunai. Tenten, with astounding speed, sliced through each one, her katana moving in a rhythmic, deadly dance. Not done yet, I threw a scroll towards her, which she instinctively cut, releasing a billowing cloud of smoke into the air. I seized the moment and lunged forward from behind the smokescreen, but Tenten was ready. She parried my attack, yet the force of the master strike sent her skidding across the shop floor. Using her katana, she managed to stop herself, digging the blade into the ground to halt her backward momentum. I let my katana glow with an ominous energy as I issued a stern warning, "Defend or else, you'll die." "Why didn't you use your last attack?" Tenten asked, dusting herself off as she rose from the debris. "Last thing I checked, a weapons specialist isn't limited to a katana," I shot back, knowing full well Tenten had more tricks up her sleeve. Without a moment's pause, Tenten hurled her katana straight at me. I raised my own blade in response, clashing against hers midair, sending a shower of sparks flying around us. Before I could regain my footing, Tenten unfurled 2 scrolls, each spilling forth a dense cloud of smoke that swiftly enveloped the area. As the smoke cleared, I was taken aback to see hundreds of weapons embedded into the ground around us, transforming the battlefield into an armory laid bare. Tenten wasted no time. She grabbed a kusarigama, a weapon consisting of a weighted chain linked to a sharp sickle, and swung it with practiced ease. The weighted chain flew towards me first, which I managed to block with my katana, the sound of metal striking metal ringing sharply. But the sickle followed a swift arc, slashing across my face and leaving a stinging, bloody mark. "Let's do this then," Tenten declared, her voice thick with resolve. A fight where either you kill or be killed. Determined not to be outdone, I steadied myself as Tenten wielded the Kusarigama with deadly precision. She spun the chain expertly, creating a dangerous zone around her that was difficult to penetrate. The sickle whizzed through the air, aimed repeatedly at my vitals, while I parried and dodged, feeling the air slice as the blade passed dangerously close. I knew I had to close the distance, negate the reach of her chain. Waiting for her next attack, I anticipated the swing of her sickle, stepped inside the arc, and with a quick, upward slash of my katana, aimed to sever the chain connecting the sickle. Metal clashed against metal with a grating sound. Sparks flew as my blade met the chain, and with a forceful twist of my wrists, the chain snapped, rendering the sickle harmless as it clattered to the ground. Now disarmed, Tenten was quick to react, backflipping away to reach for another weapon from the ground. I didn't give her the chance. I advanced, slashing and thrusting with my katana, forcing her to dodge and weave, picking up smaller throwing weapons and hurling them in quick succession. I deflected them with the flat of my blade, my arms working tirelessly. Tenten swiftly grabbed a handful of makibishi, sharp, caltrop-like spikes, and scattered them across the ground in a strategic pattern, aiming to restrict my movements. I noticed the trap just in time and leapt gracefully over the spikes, landing lightly with my katana poised and ready. Next, Tenten grabbed a shuriken, her fingers positioning it with practiced ease. She threw it with a spin that turned it into a whirling dervish of death, slicing through the air towards me. As the shuriken approached, she used the Academy Shadow Clone technique to multiply it, creating a barrage of deadly projectiles swirling around me. I readied myself, my sword sweeping through the air in broad, swift strokes, deflecting the incoming shuriken with precision. I knew this onslaught was just a diversion. Seizing a pair of sai from the ground, the light glinted off the metallic prongs as she brandished them confidently. She lunged forward, thrusting and jabbing with the sai, each strike precise and aimed to disarm or incapacitate. As she advanced, I readied my katana, understanding the unique challenge the sai posed. Unlike a sword, the sai could trap and manipulate an opponent's weapon with its prongs. I had to be careful not to let my blade get caught between them. Tenten thrust one of the sai toward my midsection, a direct and dangerous attack. I sidestepped, using the length of my katana to maintain distance, and parried the thrust to the side. The metal clanged loudly as our weapons met, sparks flying from the force of our contact. She switched tactics rapidly, attempting to hook the hilt of my katana with her sai to disarm me. Anticipating her move, I twisted my katana at an angle, avoiding the hook and bringing my blade down in a swift motion aimed at the shaft of her sai. The impact was precise, and the sai's shaft buckled under the force, rendering it less effective. Tenten didn't pause, however. With her remaining functional sai, she executed a series of quick, stabbing motions, each one faster and more aggressive than the last. I parried each attack, the sound of our clashing metal a constant echo in the charged atmosphere. Recognizing an opening as Tenten overextended one of her thrusts, I stepped in closer, inside the reach of her sai. This was risky, as it put me dangerously close to her secondary weapon, but it also gave me a chance to destroy the weapon. With a quick flick of my wrist, I maneuvered my katana in a sweeping motion aimed at disarming her. The blade of my katana struck the handle of her sai, knocking it from her grasp with the impact. Now unarmed, Tenten stepped back, assessing the situation with a quick, calculating gaze as she transitioned to metallic nunchaku. She wielded them with such grace and fluidity, they seemed like mere extensions of her arms. Each movement was a mesmerizing display of her skill. The nunchaku arced and whipped through the air, forming both a shield and a weapon as she spun them deftly around her body. Facing her, I tightened my grip on my katana, my focus narrowing to match her tempo. As Tenten launched her attack, her nunchaku slicing towards me in swift, calculated arcs, I used the blade to parry with precise timing. The metallic clang of our weapons meeting filled the air. She was relentless, each swing of her nunchaku aimed to exploit any opening. However, I stayed close, limiting the swing radius of her nunchaku, which required space to be most effective. Each time her weapon came toward me, I countered, my katana moving in a controlled blur, aimed at disrupting her rhythm and finding a gap in her defense. In a rapid exchange, Tenten's nunchaku swung towards my left side, a quick, sharp movement aimed at catching me off guard. Anticipating her strategy, I stepped forward instead of back, closing the distance even further and angling my blade towards the chain of her nunchaku. With a swift, targeted strike, I aimed not at Tenten but at the connecting chain of her weapon. The sound of metal on metal was sharp as my katana met the chain. The force of my strike was enough to break the chain, severing the connection between the nunchaku's two sections. The broken weapon clattered to the ground, rendering her attack incomplete and throwing her momentarily off balance. As Tenten advanced, her sunatetsu, a slender, needle-like weapon, flashed in rapid jabs, each thrust aimed with precision at the weak points in my guard. She moved like a dancer, her steps light and her strikes sharp, trying to target the vulnerable spots beneath my arms. Suddenly, Tenten shifted tactics, blending her weapon strikes with smooth, grappling movements reminiscent of jujutsu. She aimed to unbalance me, her body twisting in close to leverage my own weight against me. I jumped back, dodging her piercing strike, and as I landed, my katana met her sunatetsu in a powerful, sweeping arc. The master strike activated and with a resonant boom, Tenten was propelled backward, crashing into the scattered arsenal behind her. As Tenten slipped on her tekagi shuko, the metal claws glinting menacingly, she lunged forward. Her hands, transformed into deadly weapons, swiped at my katana, aiming to disarm me. I sidestepped smoothly with her claws scraped against the air, missing me by mere inches. In response, I countered with a rapid thrust, my blade slicing through the tense air towards her. Tenten ducked under my attack. Just as I prepared another strike, she dropped a smoke bomb at her feet. The area instantly clouded with thick smoke, obscuring my vision. Despite the sudden blindness, I relied on the mind's eye. With a swift motion, I struck where I predicted she'd be, my sword meeting resistance. There was a metallic clang as my blade connected with her tekagi shuko, the force of my strike overwhelming the claws, breaking through the metal. As the smoke dissipated, I noticed the remnants of Tenten's tekagi shuko scattered on the ground. I spun around just in time to see her seizing a kama, its curved blade gleaming ominously. She swung the sickle weapon in a broad, sweeping arc, intending to catch me off guard. I ducked swiftly, feeling the air shift above me as the blade sliced through it. Rising quickly, I responded with a rapid slash from my katana, aimed directly at the handle of her kama. Tenten, anticipating the counter, leapt backwards, narrowly avoiding my strike. Her movements were fluid, yet each step was calculated, using the kama not just to attack but to control space, hooking and pulling at defenses to create openings. Despite her skill, I pressed on, my own blade moving in a blur. I parried another swing of her kama and followed up with a forceful thrust. As Tenten hurled the kama at me, I pivoted swiftly, executing a swirling kata to evade the spinning blade. She didn't pause, retreating slightly, she grabbed a shiguriki, a chain weapon with a weighted end, and swung it with lethal intent. I countered instinctively, my katana slicing through the air, catching the chain mid-swing and redirecting it with a flick of my wrist, steering the weight away from me. In the same fluid motion, Tenten drew a jeet, a pronged weapon designed for disarming. She thrust at my katana, aiming to catch and control my blade. Anticipating her move, I sidestepped, the jeet passing harmlessly by. I spun around, my counterstrike swift and precise, targeting the jeet itself. My blade struck the jeet near its base, the force of my strike snapping the weapon in two. The rapid exchange was a blur of motion and metal. Tenten lunged at me with her nekote, claws affixed to her fingers like deadly extensions of her own hand. Each swipe was aimed with deadly precision, designed to slash or grab at an opponent. I responded with rapid, sweeping movements of my katana, parrying her strikes just inches from my face. The air hissed with the sound of our weapons meeting. In the heat of our exchange, I noticed a pattern to Tenten's attacks. Seizing a fleeting moment, I adjusted my stance, ready to exploit her next move. As she swiped again, I stepped closer, inside the reach of her claws, using the flat side of my blade to redirect her arm to the side. With her defenses momentarily open, I executed a swift, controlled slice, targeting the straps that secured the nekote to her hands. My blade cut through the material, and the claws clattered to the ground, rendering her momentarily weaponless. As Tenten's hand closed around the kusari fundo, a weighted chain, she snapped it forward with a fluid motion. I responded instantly, my katana slicing through the chain, severing it with a sharp clang. The severed pieces clattered to the ground, a brief pause in the relentless tempo of our duel. Without hesitation, Tenten picked up a tonfa. She wielded it expertly, using it to both attack and defend. Her movements were sharp and precise, but my swordplay matched her skill. I circled around her, my blade parrying and then countering, exploiting the brief openings in her defense. Our weapons clashed repeatedly, the sound echoing around us. The duel escalated as Tenten reached for a tetsubo, a massive war club. Despite its size, she swung it with surprising agility. However, my katana, honed and swift, met the heavy weapon mid-swing, slicing through it and breaking the club in two. The halves thudded to the ground. Unyielding, Tenten then grabbed a pair of tekko, metal knuckle guards. Her fists flew towards me, a barrage of rapid punches. I countered each strike with my katana, the metallic ring of our weapons a constant backdrop to our fierce combat. Next, she seized an ono, a traditional battle axe. She swung it in wide, powerful arcs. I dodged and weaved through her attacks, my counterstrikes chipping away at the axe handle until it finally snapped under the relentless assault. In rapid succession, Tenten switched to a kua, a short-handled hoe. She slashed at me, her movements aggressive and desperate. I met her attack head-on, my blade striking hers with such force that the kua's blade shattered. Moving swiftly, Tenten picked up a misakari, a broad axe, and aimed a heavy blow at me. I parried it skillfully, sparks flying from the contact. With a swift and clean strike, I cut the axe's head off, rendering it useless. Her determination unquenched, Tenten then wielded a long staff, spinning it with practiced skill. I was faster, my katana slicing through the staff, splitting it in two. She wasn't done yet. Grabbing a kyokutsu shoge, a hooked blade with a rope, she swung it toward me. I deflected the hook and swiftly closed the distance between us, severing the rope with a sharp flick of my blade, neutralizing another of her weapons. Tenten then took up an eku, a boat oar, using its length to try to keep me at bay. But my blade was relentless, cutting through the wood effortlessly. She picked up a nagamaki, a long-bladed polearm. She thrust and slashed, each move swift and calculated, but my agility and swordplay were superior. I dodged her strikes and countered, my katana a blur of motion as I maneuvered around her relentless attacks. Tenten gripped the naginata, its long pole topped with a curved blade that glinted menacingly in the light. She launched into an assault, the blade slicing through the air with precision. Her movements were fluid, utilizing the naginata's reach to keep me at a distance, sweeping the blade in wide, arcing strikes aimed to cut or push me back. Her movements were fluid, utilizing the naginata's reach to keep me at a distance, sweeping the blade in wide, arcing strikes aimed to cut or push me back. From my perspective, each of Tenten's maneuvers was a lethal dance, demanding my utmost attention. I wielded my katana defensively, the shorter blade requiring me to be agile. I parried her sweeping cuts, sidestepping the slicing arcs, and ducking under the high swings. As Tenten switched to thrusting, aiming the sharp point of the naginata directly at me, I recognized my chance. She was extending herself slightly with each thrust, an inevitable vulnerability given the weapon's length. Waiting for her next forward push, I deflected the tip of her naginata to the side with my katana, using a classic redirection technique. The moment her weapon veered off its intended path, I stepped inside her guard, the proximity negating her weapon's advantage. With a quick pivot, I brought my katana up in a swift, rising slash aimed at the shaft of her naginata. The blade cut deeply into the wood, severing the pole, and effectively halving the reach of her weapon. Tenten quickly snatched up an uchiwa, a rigid fan traditionally used for defense, and started using it to parry my sword strikes. Her movements were precise, the fan snapping open and shut with a sharp flick of her wrist, creating a barrier that momentarily diverted my attacks. Each time my katana came slicing through the air, she maneuvered the fan with skill, attempting to deflect the blade and create openings for her counterattacks. Despite the rapid pace, I could see the fan straining under the force of my sword. The uchiwa, while adept at redirecting lighter blows, wasn't built to withstand the sustained assault of a sharp-edged weapon like my katana. With each strike, I increased the intensity, my blade cutting closer and closer to the fan's delicate structure. I feinted a strike to her left, and as she moved the fan to block, I quickly reversed my grip and swung with a backhanded slice. The katana met the fan with a resounding crack, slicing through the bamboo ribs and shredding the paper. Pieces of the destroyed fan fluttered to the ground like fallen leaves in a storm. Tenten's next several choices, including the suyari, Tasuki Nari Yari, Tajiri Nari Yari, Atsuchi, Bishaman Yari, Tanto, Kagi Yari, Wakazashi, Kama Yari, Dansen Uchiwa, Kata Kama Yari, Ninjutsu, Jumanji Yari, Dato, Kikuchi Yari, Odachi, Sasumata, and Tsukubo were all met with the same fate. Each weapon was wielded with incredible skill and precision, but Naruto's mastery of the sword and his keen awareness allowed him to counter and destroy each one. How? Tenten asked, breathless and incredulous, staring at the katana in Naruto's hands. This, Naruto said, holding up the katana with a sense of reverence, is an amazingly made weapon, crafted by someone strong. Tenten's expression hardened into a growl, but before she could react, Naruto tossed the katana towards her. She caught it reflexively, her confusion evident. You want to show the world your strength. Do it with a great weapon. Not a mediocre one, Naruto said firmly, his eyes locked on hers. At that moment, Mr. Higurashi, having watched the duel with a mix of apprehension and pride, threw another katana towards Naruto. With swift reflexes, Naruto caught it midair, the blade gleaming in his grasp. The air crackled with tension, both Tenten and Naruto understanding the gravity of the next move. It would end with one decisive attack. Naruto watched as Tenten's katana began to hum, a soft glow emanating from the blade. Suddenly, the sword burst into blue flames, its light casting a surreal glow on Tenten's determined face. Tenten's awakening has commenced. Conditions have been met. Tenten's class has been changed from blacksmith to herald of Hephaestus. Tenten has activated her martial spirit, the flames of a blacksmith. With a shared nod, they lunged towards each other, their movements a blur of speed and precision. Their katanas met in a single, earth-shattering clash. Naruto's sword, overwhelmed by the sheer force and newfound power of Tenten's blade, shattered into pieces. Tenten's katana, now glowing intensely, stopped just at Naruto's neck. I win, Tenten declared, her voice steady but her eyes shining with triumph. Naruto smiled, his expression one of genuine respect and a touch of chagrin. Of course you won, Tenten. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot who doesn't know when to shut up. I'm sorry if my words hurt you. Tenten's expression softened, and she placed a gentle hand on his head. You'd make a great Hokage someday. And you, Naruto replied with a grin, will earn the title of the world's strongest weapon specialist. Ahem, Mr. Higurashi's voice cut through the air, pulling the duo's attention towards the wreckage that was once a perfectly good shop. With a simple point of his finger, he made his expectations clear. You two are paying for all the damages. But Dad, Tenten began, deploying her most powerful weapon, her dull eyes, hoping to melt her father's resolve. But Mr. Higurashi stood as unfazed as a mountain, immune to the charm that would sway most. Meanwhile, Naruto fished in his pocket and pulled out a single ryo, accompanied by a coupon for one free ramen. With a grin that could light up the Hidden Leaf Village, he offered his treasures to Mr. Higurashi as if presenting a royal decree. Well then, I should go now, he announced, matching his words with a nervous grin, attempting a casual, backward retreat. Before Naruto could make his grand escape, Mr. Higurashi's arm shot out, landing heavily on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto glanced up to see the veins and muscles in Mr. Higurashi's arm standing out like the roots of an ancient tree, a silent but clear message. Naruto let out a nervous chuckle, the sound a mix between a squeak and a gulp. You are paying for it. Yes, sir, Naruto squeaked out. Quest completion. Reward granted. Ali, Tenten now a loyal ally. Hidden reward. Destroying all of Tenten's weapons has earned 1000 experience points. Additional quest unlocked. Paying back debt. Chain quest alert. Quest. Paying back debt. Objective. Earn 50k ryo to pay for the damage to Mr. Higurashi's shop, with the assistance of Tenten. Closing square bracket. Rewards. Plus 500 reputation with Higurashi shop. Friendship with Tenten. 1000 express. Special item from Higurashi shop. Failure. No monetary loss, but minus 700 with Higurashi shop and missed opportunity for a loyal ally in Tenten. Closing square bracket. Action required. Acceptance or declination of quest. Hinata was not usually one to look forward to school, seeing it as yet another stage to showcase her lack of success in pretty much everything. However, there was one, brightly shining exception to this dreary outlook, Naruto-kun. Just the thought of him could light up her day, and today, she was determined to make a bento for him, hoping to capture his heart through his stomach. In the Hyuga household kitchen, Hinata stood surrounded by an array of ingredients, meticulously planning the perfect meal. Naruto-kun loves meats, she murmured to herself, carefully selecting the juiciest cuts while purposefully ignoring most of the vegetables. But he hates vegetables, except for red beans, she continued, remembering his peculiar taste. Only in red bean soup, though. With a smile, she began to assemble the bento, her movements graceful and filled with care, imagining Naruto's delighted face. In her head, the scene played out perfectly. "Naruto-kun, I made you this meal," she would say, her voice filled with hope. And he, with stars in his eyes, would reply, "Hinata, I couldn't have asked for a better wife." At that thought, Hinata blushed a deep red and let out a giggle, lost in her daydreams. "What are you giggling at, big sister?" A curious voice interrupted her fantasy. Hinata spun around to find her little sister, Hanabi, along with a few of the household servants. Nothing," Hinata stammered, her face now matching the color of a ripe tomato. "I was just making a few bentos." Hanabi's gaze drifted to the small mountain of bentos Hinata had prepared. "Are you trying to gain weight?" she asked innocently, her question loaded with the naivety only a younger sibling could possess. Hinata's heart sank, and her imagination took a nosedive. "Do I look fat? Does Naruto-kun like fat girls? Ah, does he hate me because I am the fattest woman in the world?" No. Observing Hinata's sudden shift from dreamy bliss to utter despair, Hanabi could only sweat drop at the dramatic change. Typical, she thought, understanding all too well her sister's tendency to overthink and take the words of others a little too seriously. Hinata tiptoed into class, her eyes scanning every corner for that unmistakable mop of blonde hair. But Naruto-kun was nowhere to be seen. "Oh, I thought he was getting more punctual," she sighed to herself, a little disappointed. The day dragged on, each tick of the clock stretching longer than the last, but Naruto-kun never showed up. Was he sick? She worried, her imagination conjuring up images of Naruto laid up with a cold. As soon as school ended, Hinata dashed off to the one place she was sure to find Naruto, Ichiraku Ramen. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw him, but it plummeted the next instant. There he was, with another girl. The girl's dress was vibrant, hugging her form with elegant lines and a high collar. It was adorned with intricate patterns, swirling designs that seemed to dance with each movement she made. No, I was too late. Hinata's heart ached, a lump forming in her throat. But then, the girl spoke, "Can I get a vegetarian ramen?" Hinata's eyes widened. "Gah, what unholy monstrosity is that? You have defiled the sanctity of ramen." Naruto's accusation cut through Hinata's despair, bringing a bizarre sense of relief. The girl, unfazed, pulled out a giant page that looked suspiciously like a contract. "Anything else to say?" she asked Naruto, who could only grumble in response. "I am helping you," she insisted, to which Naruto protested about the unholy vegetable. Their argument was cut short by Ayame, who wielded her wooden spoon like a weapon of justice, smacking Naruto on the head. "That hurt," Naruto complained, rubbing the sore spot, only to notice Hinata standing there with a look of utter confusion. "Oh, Hinata, I didn't see you there. Please tell me you came to order something holy," Naruto said, eager to restore some sanctity to his ramen sanctuary. Hinata, however, was stuck on a different thought. "You didn't come to class today," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Oh, yeah, I was helping Mr. Higurashi and Tenten clean the ahem mess in his shop," Naruto explained, coughing awkwardly. "Which you caused," Tenten chimed in, accepting her vegetarian ramen with a smirk. "Excuse me, it was both of our mess," Naruto shot back, turning his attention back to Hinata. "Anyways, Tenten and I are trying to figure out a way to make some money to pay for the damages," he said, taking his ramen from Ayame. "Can I help?" Hinata blurted out louder than she intended, her cheeks flaming red. "Thanks, Hinata, you are a true friend," Naruto beamed, sending Hinata's heart into a fluttering mess, almost ready to faint. Meanwhile, Tenten raised an eyebrow, her expression saying clear as day, "No way." Naruto, slurping his noodles with unabashed gusto, broke the silence. "Okay, any ideas? Because frankly, I have none." "Don't speak while eating," Tenten scolded, then quickly shifted gears. "Do you have some skills we can use?" I can make seals, Naruto offered, a bit of noodle dangling from his mouth. Tenten paused, weighing the confession. I know I should be surprised, since Fuinjutsu isn't easy, but, yeah, I think I can sell a few storage scrolls to some genins and chunins I know. Yada, we're done, Naruto declared triumphantly, taking another victorious bite of his ramen. No, because I can probably get around 5k ryo from selling low-grade storage sealing scrolls, Tenten mused, a plan forming in her mind. Excuse me, but I can make medium-grade storage seals, Naruto interjected, his pride wounded. And how long would that take you? Tenten prodded. Depends on the yield, Naruto replied. About 20, give or take, Tenten estimated. A week, Naruto concluded, and both sighed in unison, realizing the enormity of their task. How much do we need? Hinata chimed in, her voice tinged with worry. 50k, Tenten dropped the bomb, causing Hinata's eyes to widen in shock as she glanced at Naruto, her expression screaming, what the hell kind of damage did you do? Naruto just silently ate, avoiding the question altogether. What about you? Tenten turned her attention to Hinata, who gulped nervously. I am not that good at anything, Hinata confessed, her confidence faltering. That's not true, you're amazing, Naruto said, causing Hinata to blush furiously, while Tenten wore a knowing smirk. Like what? Tenten prodded further. Well, she has this weird eye thingy, like your jerk of a teammate who you like, Naruto teased, enjoying the moment. I don't like Neji, Tenten stammered, caught off guard. And you were looking at him and blushing when we first met, Naruto added, his voice deadpan, leaving Tenten scrambling for words. I just think he's good looking. Annoying to listen to, but good looking, so it balances out, Tenten tried to explain, but Naruto just looked at her, his eyebrows twitching in disbelief. First, it was Ino, and now Tenten. Why do girls only care about looks? Naruto lamented, turning to Hinata with a mock-serious tone. Hinata, please tell me you don't go for looks, unlike some shallow people. In her mind, Hinata crafted a heartfelt defense, but Naruto-kun, you're the most handsome to me. Does that mean I shouldn't like you? Of course not. I adore Naruto-kun for so much more than your looks. Your kindness, your bravery, your caring nature, and, okay, maybe your handsome face a little bit. Her internal monologue painted her cheeks a vivid shade of red, though none of her passionate thoughts made it past her lips. Naruto, misinterpreting Hinata's flustered silence and rosy complexion, sighed, believing he had proven his point. See, everyone goes for looks, he concluded, placing his face in his palm, unaware of the epic saga of admiration and love Hinata had just silently narrated in her head. So, skills? Tenten asked, turning the conversation back to their money-making dilemma. Hinata, feeling a bit lost, glanced down, only to notice the bento she had packed earlier. I can't cook, she whispered, almost too softly for the others to hear. Tenten acknowledged the suggestion with a nod. Great skill, but I don't think we have the budget or time to make a food stand, she reasoned, shooting down the idea gently. At his wit's end, Naruto, fueled by frustration, tapped into spirit possession, sparking a sudden burst of inspiration. I know how we can make money. How? Tenten inquired, clearly skeptical, taking another slurp of her soup. E-rank missions, Naruto declared, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. Don't worry, Hinata, I'll think of something. Naruto clearly doesn't have a brain, Tenten muttered, dismissing the idea before Naruto could even elaborate. But Naruto was undeterred. I'm serious. You're a genin, so you can get E-rank missions. All we have to do is select a bunch of E-rank missions and divide them amongst ourselves. We use the transformation jutsu to disguise ourselves as Tenten so no one gets suspicious, he explained, his plan unfolding with each word. Tenten opened her mouth to protest, to point out the sheer absurdity of the plan, but the longer she thought about it, the more it seemed to make a weird kind of sense. Okay, but we have to avoid any missions where we're in close proximity to other ninjas so that we don't get caught, she finally conceded, laying out the one condition that made this bizarre plan somewhat palatable. Naruto and Hinata nodded in agreement. Missions are the bread and butter for any ninja, assigned by the village or a contractor. They are divided into 6 categories based on numerous factors. In fact, an entire building in the ninja village is dedicated solely to assigning a rank to each mission. These are categorized as S, A, B, C, D, and E rank. E-rank missions are the most numerous, primarily because they consist of simple tasks around the village that villagers are willing to pay for. Want your dogs walked? Simply head down to the Hokage Tower, fill out a form, and within about an hour, a lone genin will arrive to complete the mission. Normally, E and D rank missions are interchangeable, the only difference being that D ranks are completed by genin teams, while E ranks are handled by lone genins. Most genins despise these missions, having dreamed of saving princesses or battling dragons, yet find themselves cleaning toilets and locating lost cats instead. I thought my first mission would be me traveling to a distant land to find a mythical sword in a lake and becoming the queen of that land. Tenten chuckled at the thought. Tenten strode into the Hokage's office with a mission, literally. She was armed with a form for a dozen E-rank missions, her mind spinning with the elaborate plan she and her friends had concocted. To get the necessary approval, she'd convinced Guy-sensei that these missions were part of an intense solo training regimen he'd be proud of. With his signature gracing the form, she felt confident, even though she knew bending the truth was a risky game. The office was bustling, clerks moving back and forth, papers flying as if caught in a gentle breeze. She approached the counter, form in hand, and was greeted by a clerk who looked as though he'd seen too many forms and not enough daylight. "Good afternoon." The clerk peered over his glasses, eyeing the form and then Tenten with a mix of surprise and amusement. A dozen E-rank missions. Planning to conquer the world of weeding and cat finding, are we? He joked, trying to inject some lightness into the process, well aware of the rigorous nature of shinobi missions, regardless of their rank. Tenten chuckled nervously, playing along. Yes, just trying to keep Konoha safe from unruly gardens and stray animals. Someone's got to do it, she replied, hoping her attempt at humor didn't sound as forced as it felt. The first clerk finished up with a nod. All right, you're all set. Jonin Maeda Guy's signature checks out, and your missions are approved. Good luck out there, Tenten. Konoha is counting on you to keep those gardens in check, he said, handing back the form now stamped with approval. Thank you, I won't let you down, Tenten said. Tenten left the Hokage's office with her new mission documents in hand and headed straight to the nearest shop. There, Hinata and Naruto were attempting to blend in inconspicuously. Hinata, her Byakugan activated, was pretending to read a newspaper upside down. Next to her, Naruto was sipping water, donning a pair of comical glasses, featuring large bushy eyebrows, a bulbous nose, and a thick mustache attached to the frame, masking his recognizable features somewhat clumsily. You guys are taking this seriously. A ninja must maintain discipline and secrecy during a mission, Naruto declared, his glasses slipping off his face as he spoke. Hinata quickly caught them and handed them back to him. These are E-rank missions, there's no need for all of this, Tenten countered, her tone light and dismissive as Naruto shook his head in disagreement. We can still get into real trouble here, Naruto insisted, his seriousness echoed by Hinata's nod of agreement. Tenten glanced at the document in her hand, a hint of amusement flickering in her eyes. Sure, she replied nonchalantly, barely concealing a smirk. She was clearly looking forward to seeing their reactions. Okay, what's on the plate? Finding a legendary treasure hidden at the end of the sea, or maybe rescuing a soul reaper trapped in a society of souls. Naruto said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Tenten, trying to keep a straight face, handed him the mission scroll, which brought him crashing back down to earth. Cleaning the public toilets, she announced, almost apologetically. This is shit. Naruto looked ready to cry as his dreams were broken, with Hinata patting him on the back and Tenten ignoring the heartbroken boy. Okay, we've got to find a spot where we can switch in and out without anyone catching on that we're all playing me for the day. How about we use my place as the take house? Naruto threw in, slightly off with the terminology. Safe house, Naruto. And sure, let's do that, Tenten corrected him with a nod, already on board with the idea. At the mention of heading to Naruto's apartment, Hinata's face blossomed into a deep red, her imagination likely spinning wild scenarios about the significance of being in his personal space. A few minutes later, Naruto led the way to his apartment, giving the door a hearty kick to swing it open. Tenten and Hinata cautiously stepped in, immediately met with the sight of what could generously be called organized chaos. What? Naruto looked back, sensing their hesitation. It's surprisingly cleaner than a pigpen, Tenten remarked, her voice dripping with genuine surprise. a compliment so backhanded Naruto wasn't sure whether to say thank you or start an argument. As Tenten navigated through the clutter, her foot nudged something on the floor. Bending down, she picked up a book, the pillow book. Her laugh filled her head. Haha, no way. Flipping it open, she found it to be the genuine novel, not some knockoff or a parody. Guess even idiots recognize art, she mused silently, placing the book on the nearest stable surface, a table that had seen better days. Hinata, meanwhile, gathered a small collection of books scattered around. Collection of 10,000 Leaves. The Narrow Road to the Deep North. Tosa Diary, Tales of Eyes. Hinata, holding the poetry books, felt a twinge of annoyance. How come I didn't know Naruto-kun was into poetry? She mumbled under her breath, slightly irked that this facet of his personality had eluded her. It was a revelation that both surprised and somehow vexed her. After all, wasn't she supposed to be the one who knew him best? But then, as quickly as the annoyance had bubbled up, it transformed into something softer, warmer. She imagined Naruto, the village's most unpredictable ninja, standing beneath her window, reciting verses of love with the same intensity he applied to his training. Naruto-kun, my very own Romeo, she thought, a dreamy smile spreading across her face. Guys, Naruto tried to get their attention, only to be met with a sharp glare from Tenten. Female guys, he corrected, though it didn't seem to improve his situation. Keep trying, Tenten muttered, rolling her eyes as she took the opportunity to survey the rest of Naruto's living conditions. How can someone keep living in such a broken-down home? She pondered, her gaze sweeping over the room. I can see that fridge is completely broken, the doors hardly stay on their hinges, those windows are too moldy to let in any light, she continued, ticking off the apartment's many, shall we say, quirks, on her fingers. What's the plan that doesn't involve you two making judgments about my home? Naruto asked. Tenten, while tracing the kunai marks along the bathroom door with her finger, laid out their mission strategy. The plan is that you two are going to transform into me. We'll take on missions as far away from each other as possible, come back here, and I'll go and collect the mission payments at the Hokage Tower. After that, we use the money to fix this place up. Naruto had been nodding along, absorbed in the plan's logistics, until Tenten's final remark hit him like a rogue wave. His expression shifted from understanding to shock, his eyes widening. Tenten, meanwhile, was already calculating the costs, mumbling to herself about a new fridge and repair expenses. Why? Naruto interjected, his curiosity piquing as he interrupted Tenten's calculations. Why not? We're friends, aren't we? I don't want my friend living like this when I have the ability to help him. I'm sure Hinata feels the same, Tenten replied, her gaze shifting to Hinata, who nodded in agreement. At that moment, Naruto struggled to keep his composure. His lips quivered, and his eyes glistened as he fought back tears, looking down to hide his vulnerability. Thank you, he whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. Taking a deep breath, he lifted his head and said it louder, with more force, thank you. His voice cracked, betraying the emotional turmoil swirling within him. Ouch, Tenten grimaced, covering her ears, but her eyes softened at the sight of Naruto's tears. For Naruto, it was more than just the promise of a better living space, it was the realization that he wasn't alone, that he had friends who cared deeply enough to intervene. Okay, you big orange baby. Show me your transformation jutsu, Tenten commanded. In a puff of smoke, Naruto transformed, and suddenly, another Tenten stood before them, mirroring her stance. Good. Now show me the mannerisms. She demanded next. What? Both Naruto and Hinata echoed in confusion. Tenten let out a heavy sigh, her patience thinning. There's so much more to a person than just an image. I want to see if you can actually come across as me, she explained, trying to instill in them the importance of the finer details. Naruto whipped out his kunai and started mock stabbing the air. Stab stab. Suddenly, a notification appeared before Naruto's eyes. Congratulations. Skill transformation jutsu has leveled up. He paused, taken aback. Wait, why? Naruto stood there, scratching his head, deep in thought. He was trying to piece together the puzzle of why his transformation jutsu had suddenly leveled up. Was it really because of his playful, albeit simplistic, imitation of Tenten's fighting style? Or was it something else entirely? He pondered over the possibility that maybe, just maybe, it was simply a matter of timing. Perhaps he had used the jutsu enough times already, and this moment, right after his stabby performance, was just when it happened to level up, pure coincidence. His contemplation was rudely interrupted by Tenten, who, armed with the stupid stick, whacked him back into his original form. What was that for? Naruto groaned, rubbing the spot where he'd been hit. I am more than just a stabby girl, Tenten huffed, clearly unamused by Naruto's reductive portrayal of her. Like what? I am an elegant weapon-wielding mistress of steel and Tenten began, puffing up with pride. Delusions, Naruto interjected, earning himself a glare that could freeze lava. Tenten raised the stupid stick. Mind repeating that? She asked, her voice dangerously low. No, I sense that I've made a mistake. Naruto quickly backpedaled, realizing he might have poked the bear one too many times. Amidst the exchange, Hinata felt an unexpected twinge of jealousy. Watching Naruto and Tenten bicker with such ease, she couldn't help but wish she could interact with Naruto-kun in the same light-hearted, bantering way. Why can't I be like that with Naruto-kun? She wondered, her heart longing for the kind of camaraderie that came so naturally to others. Notification. This is the first time you have accepted a quest not directly issued by the system. Further details will be provided. Closing square bracket. Info. Upon accepting missions, jobs, or tasks from organizations outside the system's purview, the details will be analyzed by the system and an equivalent quest will be issued for tracking purposes. The system is not responsible for rewards from these quests other than experience points unless actions qualify the player for hidden rewards. Normal rewards are provided by the organization, hidden rewards are granted by the system. Closing square bracket. Parameters have been established. Alert. World Quest. Quest title. Restore order. Objective. Repair the vandalism in the public bathroom to ensure safety and hygiene for the community. Use any necessary means to clean, repair, and restore the facility to its original condition. Closing square bracket. Rewards. 100 experience points, 500 Ryo, mission completion stamp awarded upon successful restoration of the public bathroom. Penalty for failure. Failed E-rank mission, -100 reputation with Tenten, 50 express. Naruto stood before the public bathroom, his expression far from amused. To call it a bathroom was a stretch, more like a disaster area that had once seen better days. The walls were covered in graffiti, ranging from nonsensical doodles to rude remarks. The mirrors were cracked, and the smell, well, let's just say it would be kinder not to describe it. It was such an unwelcome assault on the senses that had Naruto wishing for a jutsu to clear his nostrils. It was clear this place had seen more vandalism than cleaning in its time. Okay then, Genin, I'm sure you can clean up that damn fox demon's mess, the mission giver had said, with a dismissive wave of his hand. The comment hit Naruto harder than expected. He knew civilians used that nickname for him, mistakenly attributing his whisker marks to some fox-like nature. Naruto could hardly believe the absurd reasons people found to blame him for things completely out of his control. First, there was his association with the Uzumaki clan, then the sabotage from teachers because he was born on October 10th, and now even his birthmarks were a target for disdain. It all seemed so ridiculous. Is there anything they hate me for that I actually chose? He wondered silently, the frustration evident in his sigh. It felt like no matter what he did, he was always seen in a negative light for reasons beyond his choice or control. I don't do vandalism, I only do pranks. Naruto corrected the man in his mind, already plotting a harmless but fitting revenge prank for the man who dared to tarnish his reputation. With a heavy sigh, Naruto decided to focus on the task at hand. Let's just get this over with, he muttered, rolling up his sleeves. As Hinata stepped into Naruto's home, she found Tenten knee-deep in what looked like a construction site, right in the middle of the living room. Tools were scattered everywhere, and the air was filled with the distinct scent of effort and wood shavings. Tenten was in the process of wrestling with the bathroom door, a new one leaning against the wall, waiting to take its place. Oh, Hinata, you done with the mission? Tenten asked without looking up, her focus on prying the old door off its hinges. Why yeah, Hinata managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Place the mission documents on the table, Tenten instructed, and Hinata complied, sitting down to watch Tenten work her magic with the tools. What do you like about Naruto? Tenten suddenly threw the question into the air, as casually as one might comment on the weather. The question caught Hinata off guard, sending her into a flurry of nervous flailing, desperately wishing for the power of invisibility. Her face turned the shade of a ripe tomato. "Oh, must be love," Tenten teased, a giggle escaping her as she yanked the old door out with a final tug and set it aside. Hinata was beyond red at this point. "Come on, no need to hide it from me. What do you like about Naruto?" Tenten prodded, not really expecting a serious answer, just aiming to tease Hinata, maybe make her feel more at ease. But then, Hinata began to answer, with a voice so steady and sure it seemed out of character for her, as if her love for Naruto was the only thing she was confident in. "First, it's definitely his kindness," she stated, her confidence surprising. "Or how considerate he is." Hinata continued, painting a picture of Naruto that seemed to confuse Tenten. "Huh." Tenten blinked, not following. "Or his subtle humor," Hinata added, her description veering into uncharted territories for Tenten. "Wait right there, Hinata." "Sorry, there must be some misunderstanding," Tenten interrupted, her hands pausing in their work. "Yeah, what?" Hinata looked puzzled. "Are we talking about the same Naruto? Like, the one whose apartment we're in?" Tenten questioned, her tone filled with incredulity. "Of course, there's no one with the same name, since it's so unique. And there's no one aside from Naruto who has such amazing fashion taste. It's not just his fashion and handsomeness, but even if he had none, I just fell for his bravery." Hinata explained with a smile, her adoration for Naruto shining through. Tenten stared at her with a deadpan expression. Being in love is scary, she thought to herself, Naruto and fashion. The concept seemed so alien, so wildly implausible, it could only be explained by the irrational, unfathomable nature of love. Tenten, with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, leaned towards Hinata. "Hey, how about I help with your love life?" she offered, a grin spreading across her face. "Really?" Hinata asked, her voice a mix of hope and surprise. Then, with a hesitant voice, she added, "But don't you like Naruto-kun?" Tenten's expression froze for a moment before she burst into laughter. "Haha, that's a good one, but no, I don't like Naruto. He isn't cute enough, unlike Neji," she managed to say between giggles. Hinata's relief was palpable, she had gained an ally rather than a rival. "How are we going to do this?" Hinata quickly asked, eager to hear the plan. Tenten, now focusing on the task of screwing the new door's hinges, mused, "A relationship is like a three-legged race, both of you have to put in the work." Hinata looked on, puzzled by the analogy but attentive. "Okay, try to do something that Naruto will notice," Tenten suggested after a moment. "Cooking," Hinata ventured, hopeful. "Probably not. That Ayame girl from Ichiraku Ramen cooks for Naruto, yet he doesn't seem to see her as much more than the food," Tenten pointed out, her pragmatism slicing through Hinata's idea. "What do I do then?" Hinata's voice was tinged with desperation. "What's something you can help Naruto with that he would probably never forget?" Tenten prodded, screwing the last hinge in place. Hinata thought for a moment before her face lit up. "I can help him with the clone jutsu." "He can't do the clone jutsu." Tenten looked at Hinata in disbelief, pausing her work. "He has too much chakra and too little control," Hinata explained, her voice firm. "Okay, so you're going to help him with chakra control exercises," Tenten concluded, giving the new door a final, approving nod. "Yeah." Hinata nodded, the plan taking shape in her mind. After all, the Hyuga were known for their impeccable chakra control. Helping Naruto could be the perfect way to grow closer. Just then, Naruto burst into the room, slamming the mission documents on the table. "Finally done," he announced, flopping down in exhaustion. "I am never doing these missions when I'm genin," he huffed, his resolve firm. "Everyone thinks like that. Now, get up and take that old door out." "I'm tired," Tenten commanded, rolling her eyes at Naruto's dramatics. Naruto, with the old door in his grasp, started to wobble forward, the weight seemingly too much for him. Setting the door aside, Naruto captured Tenten and Hinata's attention with his next move. He started rolling up his shirt, revealing his midriff, much to Hinata's shock and apparent delight, judging by her immediate nosebleed. "What are you doing?" Tenten exclaimed, her voice a mixture of confusion and concern. "Hacks," Naruto declared triumphantly, tying the jacket sleeves around his waist like a makeshift belt, his mind clearly ticking with mischief. Give me your katana, Naruto then demanded, turning to Tenten with an expectant look. No, Tenten flatly refused. Yes. No. No, Naruto suddenly reversed tactics. Yes. Shit, you tricked me, she grumbled, handing over the katana with a reluctant frown. Naruto, with a victorious smirk, bit into the hilt of the katana, earning a look of horror from Tenten. He wasn't really going to. But before she could finish the thought, Naruto was already checking his system window, marveling at his enhanced stats. Stats. STR, 20 base 12 plus 8. Dex, 17 base 14 plus 3. Con, 10. Int, 13. Wis, 12. Cha, 9. VIT, 26 base 11 plus 15. Luck. Closing square bracket. With the boosts in stats, Naruto picked up the door as if it were made of paper, shouting, "Hacks!" in victory. However, his triumph was short-lived. In his excitement, he forgot a fundamental truth: one cannot effectively speak with a katana in one's mouth. The katana slipped from his grasp, leading to a swift "item katana has been unequipped" notification. In the blink of an eye, Naruto found himself on the floor, the door crashing down on top of him. Idiot, Tenten thought, shaking her head at the spectacle. Thank for listening. Do hope you enjoy. If you guy enjoyed, if you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications, and also check out the other videos that have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.